All right, well, we've got a quorum, so I think we should start. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, June 17th Conservation Commission virtual, still by authorization of the state. So first is just, is there anything that we need to add to the agenda that could not have been anticipated 48 hours in advance?
Yes, I would like to talk about a couple of activities that came to our attention, I think yesterday, with, I believe the activities were being conducted by the DPW crew.
So that could fit under site stuff.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. And since we have Addie and Sean as well, maybe that's a good time to, yes, and that's fine. Okay, so we'll add that.
The other
Yeah.
thing is, do we want to, I don't know if you got to read my email earlier, whether we want to talk a little where the agent status, I don't see that on here for some reason.
It is.
It's on there. I
Okay.
think it's way down in the, it might be on the second page.
It's
even.
there, agent position update, so it's on there.
Okay, so we can talk about if we want to discuss budget or other kind of stuff there.
Yep.
Okay, fine. I guess I'm looking at an old agenda. I don't see it here.
It's pretty far down and it's the one off the Dropbox, so I don't know if you have that one.
Yeah, I have to go back and look and see. Okay, fine. Then I don't have, and I guess, do we need to deal with any appointment stuff, or I guess maybe not?
Well, that's on there too.
It's on there also.
Goody, goody. Okay, I'll shut up.
All right, anything else that needs to be added? Fantastic. All right, so let's do this. Jean, so we've got our bi-weekly poetry reading, and Jean is going to take the helm on this one.
Okay, this is not a poem. It's the introduction to the novel Sometimes a Great Notion by Ken Kesey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, going back.
So this is a great book, and then Ken Kesey is an underappreciated author. But go ahead.
Oh, yes. Oh, wonderful.
Okay, introduction. Along the western slopes of the Oregon coastal range, come look, the hysterical crashing of tributaries as they merge into the Wakanda Agua River. The first little washes flashing like thick rushing winds through sheep sorrel and clover, ghost fern and nettle, forming branches. Then through bearberry and salmonberry, blueberry and blackberry, the branches crashing into creeks, into streams. Finally, in the foothills, through tamarack and sugar pine and silver spruce, and the green and blue mosaic of Douglas fir, the actual river falls 500 feet, and look, opens out upon the fields. Metallic at first, seen from the highway, down through the trees like an aluminum rainbow, like a slice of alloy moon. Closer, becoming organic, a vast smile of water with broken and rotting pilings, jagged along both gums, foam clinging to the lips. Closer still, it flattens into a river, flat as a street, cement gray with a texture of rain, flat as a rain-textured street, even during flood season because of a channel so deep and a bed so smooth, no shallows to set up buckwater rapids, nothing to indicate movement, except the swirling clots of yellow foam skimming seaward with the wind, and the thrusting groves of flooded bam, bent, taut wind, and the trembling by the pull of silent, dark momentum. A river smooth and seeming calm, hiding the cruel file edge of its current beneath in a smooth, calm seeming surface. Come look. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
I love it. There's a, I don't know where in that book, but it's in the beginning where he talks about some ancestor that they opened a barrel of nails and the next day looked in there and everything, they were all rusted, and he picked up and he walked away and nobody ever saw him again. He just had enough of the rain.
Yeah. There's a lot of kind of shocking stuff in that book.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, okay, good. The Demon Box is another great one of his. I love that one. All right. Okay, so where are we? We've got Hildreth Schoolhouse Trail sign and the Barber sign. Is that why we've got DPW here too?
Yes, I assume so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we put the sign up at Hildreth because it was in a rush because we got this grant for doing the study of traffic calming islands. And part of the grant request was identifying that location as a shared street spot that we had to tie it to COVID, and the tie-in was that the outdoor spaces in town have been utilized more. There's more bikers on the roads, and there's more hikers and people looking to get outside. And just in the rush of, we got the funds and there was a little bit of money, and I thought, we don't have any trailhead sign there. Some people know that there's trails there. It had come up a couple times. Seth had come and asked if there was a way to improve parking access for during the winter when the fields are locked up for people to access those trails. So after doing that sign, we thought, well, maybe if there is a little bit of extra, we could do another sign down at down by the, oh my gosh.
Barber.
Barbara?
Yes, thank you, Barbara. It's been a long week. It's still fifth graders have graduated, and it seems like everything in the last year that couldn't happen all got crammed in 1 week. So they, anyways, because we're going to try and also put another similar slow down road diet down at the Barber. We thought, well, it's for kind of continuity, we might be able to do another sign. And Seth had was going to send me the trail map. But that it came to my attention that, and I, again, things were done in a rush with the first one because we had to have everything installed and in place to be able to do a report to the state on the grant. So we probably should have gone to conservation for input on the sign and didn't. So if we are doing, and we don't have to do another sign, but the Barber is a secondary kind of, it was a bonus if there was some funds, but if there's interest, I guess, is there something that should have been on the sign or
Well,
something?
can I just ask about the first sign? Where did you put it up?
We put it up by the crosswalk area.
Okay. Yeah, I think the only comment that was made about it at the last meeting was, well, one, we'd like to work with you when it's regarding conservation land, but I think everybody thought the sign was fine. That would be nice to mention on any signs regarding conservation land that that parcel is under the management of the Sherborn Conservation Commission. And my next question is, so I think, a similar sign at Barber sounds great. You're talking about also maybe putting in a traffic calming thing like you've done by Hildreth? Yes or no?
Yes, I mean, they're temporary. These are all temporary. They're just to kind of get people to, with the road being so straight, kind of slow down, take notice. There's, the goal then, if it's in a good location and it works, then there's more permanent ones, but they'd be much smaller profile. They just right in the middle of the road, a thin kind of peninsula island. That kind of,
with a crosswalk?
no, we wouldn't do another. I don't think. I mean, again, the grant was focused on the Fessenden Pleasant Street, since that was an area that had been identified during the 2017 complete streets prioritization. So everything was documented with that location. So other things are still need to be further explored, but putting something up that's a temporary thing is able to be done potentially.
Yeah, I think the crosswalks on Western, the traffic calming on Western is a great idea, because sometimes it's hard to get out of the Barber parking lot because the cars are coming by so fast. And the crosswalk, if we could ever get to one, coming from
Stevens. Oh,
help me out.
Stevens Lane.
Right. Stevens Lane right across from Barber. Yeah, I mean, people park on Stevens all the time to get to Barber, and it worries me that they're running across Western Avenue. That's all I had to say.
Okay. For the, as far as the content on the sign, other than the, I think I had one version that did mention conservation, and then it was kind of one of those things that you start doing something and then you edit and it got left off. But was there anything else that needed to?
No, I thought it was a nice change because it had something fairly poetic from Art Schnur on it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I thought it was fine, but just
Okay.
the mention of conservation managing the land would be good.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else has any comments.
That's what I remember from the last time, Jean, is that the piece about conservation was missing.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is that I don't want to turn it into a thing where the commission wordsmiths anything. I wouldn't, I guess, mind seeing what's being written about it before it goes on the sign, but it's not like an approval thing. It's more just like, I'd like to know, just in case we're like, whoa, wait a minute, you know, like it says there's 3 acres there instead of 300 or something, you know what I'm saying? But if you have wording already, then.
I don't know if you can see, this was just, again, Art Schnur gave something else and was just keeping, and well, I started, and I don't have the map. It says the Barber Reservation has scenic meadows, calming forest walks, large acreage, power line views, a unique environment for plants, birds, and animals, and a beaver pond. It also features the seldom explored Sherborn's Northwest Territory to the west of the railroad tracks. And that was it. And again, this hasn't been completed, so we would mention conservation managing the property and get the right map on there.
Yeah, that looks good. But yes, if we, because it's definitely, you know, in a way, it's also like a little bit of advertising for forest and trails, and it'd be nice to have equal standing there since it is conservation land, just to, so people know that we're not just telling them not to do stuff in their wetlands.
Right.
Oh. Going back to the sign there, if you want to put it back, are we concerned about this whole mountain biking issue and whether we want to qualify by the rules of the trail? I'm not sure what the rules of the trail are.
The rules of the trail do not mention mountain biking in particular, in either that it's allowed or that it's not allowed. So, you know, to act on mountain biking now and have the sign wait for that, I think is maybe not, this is not the right timing for that.
No, I'm just trying to see whether we want to add a little clause or something, mountain biking when trails are dry or anything, just to see whether there's a chance to put a little something, but I see enough shaking heads that I guess.
Sorry.
I mean, I had gone on Memba to look if they had any better language for, I mean, people who are serious mountain bikers are every bit as concerned about trail deterioration as, you know, if you're truly a mountain biker, then you care about the trails, and that's this kind of rules of the trail comment that, you know, otherwise you could, if you start really trying to put every rule and what that means, then it gets very wordy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
Can I make a comment?
of course.
I might actually suggest this sign is big enough that it actually lends itself to perhaps a smaller sign below it. And you might want to think of anything that you may look at in the future, like the rules, for actually like a separate sign. Because we're not going to want to redo the main sign. It's beautiful. The one that's down the street is a gorgeous sign. And again, we could put it up with 2 posts and almost put a second one under it that could be changed. If something comes up where you want to change the rules on mountain biking or something else, that could be addressed individually in a different sign without reprinting this one.
Excuse me. What about adding a link on this sign that says something like, for the most up-to-date version of the rules for conservation land, please go to this link.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I think that's kind of where I got part of my problem when I was doing the first sign, that's kind of why conservation got kicked off somewhat accidentally, was I was struggling. There's no direct link to a conservation site. I mean, there's a long link if you go to Sherborn MA, but I guess trying to come up with a good link that would get them someone directly to, conservation is something that would be worth trying to figure out. I think that's why I just stuck with the Sherborn Forest and Trails link, since from there they do have links to different conservation rules. But I was
Yeah.
looking for a neat and tidy link that I could put on here, and I don't, and there also was no logo for conservation. I was going to put that, I was seeking that out kind of now, but there wasn't any logo, so it would just be the town of Sherborn's logos.
That's what we use on our letterhead, just
Yep.
the town of Sherborn. Yeah, it's not a clean journey to get from the town website homepage to anything about conservation, and that's something we've been wishing we could change for a while.
Maybe we need a QR code.
So Carol has also raised her hand. Go ahead, Carol.
Addie, I had a question. I think I just missed this earlier in the discussion. So the one that you just showed us for the Barber, has it been already printed, or are you showing it to us basically for our feedback?
We're going for feedback. Nothing's been done on Barber, so I don't have to. Seth still needs to send me the map, and yeah.
So I guess one thing I might suggest, and you can maybe show it again, is where it says the Barber Reservation, you could just put the line under it, Sherborn Conservation Land. And that would address that it's conservation land and under our administration. And then I guess when it comes to this question of open to hiking and all these different things, one possibility is just taking that line out, because the important thing we want people to understand is that they should obey kind of, I'm not seeing it right now, but it was something like, obey the rules of the road for trails. There's some wording you had there. So, I mean, one way to just get around this is, I mean, we do know that it's open for all sorts of passive recreation, but just take out trails are open, that sentence, and start with, please abide by common rules of the trail to promote responsible and courteous conduct.
Sorry, the only thing I don't understand, what's the issue with the first sentence? I guess that's my question.
I think the issue that, well, I don't know. I mean, the issue I had heard was basically we haven't specifically designated mountain biking as one of the uses for passive recreation. I guess that's the issue there.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, you raised it because we'd had problems with mountain biking, and somebody else said not all trails are designated for mountain biking. I mean, part of me is like, this is why I wanted to avoid wordsmithing this thing. It's like we can spend a lot of time doing that. I think it's fine. We're trying to just encourage people to go out, use it in a passive recreation sense, which mountain biking is included. And we haven't had any issues with mountain biking except people creating new trails. And so if we say it's okay to do all these things, and we're not going to get every sort of wrinkle and rule that we have about these things on here. It's a sign. So like, I think just saying that, basically we're open for you to go have fun and just, be respectful. And that's what I think this accomplishes that. I don't think there's a lot more we need to do with it.
Oh,
Neil, we're late for a hearing.
how many people know what the Northwest Territory is?
Okay, sorry, I totally lost track of time. Sorry about that. Okay. I don't know about everybody else, but I've had the worst week in my life. So, not true, but not a good one. All right, so, okay. Is everybody okay with this as long as, I like Carol's idea, put the verbiage under the Barber Reservation, Sherborn Conservation Lands. If we want to stick a link on there that you can find that's clean enough to get in, do it. I mean, I think we should just leave it at that.
Should it say Conservation Commission Land? Do you want the word commission in there?
We are now 7 minutes past due, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the people who have the hearing. So we can take this up again later if you'd like. Okay. So, sorry, I see somebody's hand up. Is that Marion?
Yeah, that was me. I just wondered if it's worth mentioning no motorized vehicles.
I think it says that.
It says it.
It does say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see it for long enough to.
Yeah, no, that's good.
All right,
Okay.
all right, you're good.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so we've got 49 Farm Road. This is an RDA. Do we have somebody to present? Or Joyce, are you going to cover it? Or Brian?
Well,
You're
the
gonna?
owner's here, Brian Moore.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm appearing here as the homeowner of 49 Farm Road and not in any kind of official town capacity whatsoever, except as a taxpayer and a resident. I've known and met many of you guys. We've lived here for umpteen years now. We're trying to put a 3-season porch on the front of our house, which would be an unheated space. It's relative to other things at the property, it's a very small area. It's only something like 14 by 15 feet. We've sent the application to the building department, and we've talked to the other departments about, I think, everything that they need. And this is an RDA in front of you because basically everything on our lot is within your jurisdiction, albeit for a very small middle part of the lot. So we have gotten flagging done as part of other work that's going on here. We've had some test pit work recently done related to Title V project work that MES has overseen, or MESS, whatever Dan goes by. And this area is smaller than the test pit he just put out in the yard to, do the Title V testing. So we were just going to follow the same practices in we were seeking permission to put this little 3-season porch on the front end of the house. And I've submitted plans and layout and everything. I think I'm hoping everyone here had the same access to the permit that the building department had and the other agencies had to look at the plans and whatnot.
Well, we've had your plan for to look at for at least a week, but if somebody could please pull it up, that would be great.
I can do it. Just give me one second.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we would have to do a dog and pony, so I would have had that prepared.
You can do
No,
it.
It's,
Do it, Neil.
no, it's not even, don't even worry about it. We'll bring it up. It's easy enough to do. Can people see that?
Yep, can it
Is
be
this-
enlarged a little?
Yeah, this is the one you wanted, correct?
That will work. Yeah, that shows the property line. It shows where the distance to the closest wetland flags that have been flagged. These were flagged, I forget who, but they're qualified party that Dan McIntyre is using as part of our Title V stuff. So this will eventually appear on the Title V, I guess, whatever you call it, permitting plan. You can see it's quite some distance from any part of the resource area. And if you look where the blue box call out is between there and where the well radius, protected well radius is below it, in that area, they just did a test pit for Title V. And I swear that's like 25 feet by 20 feet. Our area is only going to be, 15 by 14 when it's constructed. And it's surrounded by gardens and patios and lawn, pretty much for 50 feet in every direction at least. So, whatever controls we put on the construction would be best management controls in terms of throwing straw out and keeping things from running off. But we don't anticipate there to be much runoff until the actual structure is built, at which point we were just planning on having a drip edge right off the around it to the garden, which is up there right now. And probably some stones below the drip edge so it doesn't make like a gutter along the bottom. But that's the gist of it.
So I see two questions to think about. One is an RDA the application that we need for this versus an NOI? And the other question is, since this is an increase in impervious surface, do we want to address the question of mitigation?
Joyce, did you go out and do you have?
I did go out, and there were some pictures in there that I took of the area that's, so this area is right in front of the house, and between the wetlands and this proposed three-season porch is a lawn and a patio. So where it's kind of enclosed in a garden area in the front. So there's nothing that really can come off the roof of what's proposed. It's going to go right into the garden area that surrounds it. I don't know if you can pull those up.
Yeah, I can do it.
So if you look where the chimney is, right, that's where the addition's going to go. And then you see the hedgerow, and then the patio, and then there's another picture if you scroll down of the lawn. That's the lawn between the wetlands are down below that edge. Down there's a section of forested the forested area down towards that wetland. So I don't know. There's quite a separation between the wetland and this proposed activity, and then the driveway is right in front of it. So their project access, the driveway sits right in front of I'm pointing at my screen.
To the left, I think would be the best way to put it, to the
Right.
left of what you're looking at.
Just, it's right there is where
And
your
it's uphill.
the driveway is. So there's
That's right.
easy access, but it's also bordered by gardens. So this whole thing is enclosed in a garden area.
So when actually as part of the plan, we would probably move some of the rose bushes, and Mary's been talking about getting some more rose bushes. So we'd probably put some rose bushes and some decorative plantings around the porch to, make use of the water that comes off of the drip edge of the porch. And essentially this is, it's not really resource area that's being converted. So I really didn't consider the fact that we would have to be, I don't know, what was it you said, mitigation, or what was
Yes.
the other one?
The application question.
Right. Cindy, do you want to make a comment?
Yep, I had the same two questions that Jean did, because after reading the town bylaw 7.1, I think it is, it didn't, this project does not fall into any of those exempt activities. And so as I was reading the town bylaw, it didn't seem to me that it would end up being it's not a patio that has drainage through it. It would have a roof, and then you'd have runoff. I understand that would run off into the garden, but it's not one of the exempt activities captured under our town bylaw.
But is it still?
Everybody's saying it's exempt.
Yeah.
We're just.
So I wondered if it needed an NOI. I had the same question. I wondered if it needed an NOI. Because it's a little bit more, it's kind of, if I can draw an analogy, it's very similar to 13 Pleasant Street. They wanted to take a deck and make it into a porch.
But that was in our inner. That was in the inner
Okay.
buffer zone. I'm happy with this being an RDA and without the mitigation, given the scale of it and the topography of the site there.
So I just have a question. How close does it get to the,
70 feet, 70
feet?
Yes.
I thought it was 60.
No,
That's what it says in the application summary.
It said 70?
Yeah, it's 70 feet on the.
Oh, it said 64, Jean?
In the application summary.
Okay, I thought I read 64
That
somewhere.
was my application summary, and I want to say that it was hard. It was hard for me to. I was guesstimating what it was, but I can see the numbers now on this. Dan measured off this that it's 70 feet from the edge of the wetlands to the structure.
And those were just mapped like a month ago. I mean, it's not as if I'm pulling some map up from 20 years ago. This was literally mapped as part of work Dan is doing as part of our, consideration for potential Title V improvement here.
Yeah, and if I can make a comment, in my mind, it's always comes down to if it's in the outer buffer zone, it's existing lawn. I mean, scratch that. When it's in the outer buffer zone, I think that basically, in my mind, the RDA is a determination of whether or not the activity is going to have a significant adverse impact on resource areas. And if we don't think it will, then it can go the path of staying in RDA, a determination of applicability. And if we do think that there's a concern or there's a chance that something will happen, then we would go in the path of driving it into an NOI. I mean, from what I've seen here, especially given the separation and the topography, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think this needs an NOI, but that's just mine.
Well, I would just put the question to all the members. And as far as an adverse impact goes, it does, as I mentioned, it does increase impervious surface, which has maybe a minor, but does have some impact on the buffer zone's ability to collect and store precipitation.
Okay. Michael, you said you're fine with it. Cindy, would you prefer NOI, or do you think it can be managed under a RDA?
I think based on where it is, where it's bounded by a driveway, and it's a house, and then the other side of it is actually away from the wetland, like toward the garden, away from the wetland, toward Farm Road. I think, I would be fairly comfortable. I would, of course, like to ask for demarcation, just from an educational standpoint. Should the home ever be sold, someone moving in may not understand all of this. It may not be as educated in this as the Moores are. And that demarcation would be helpful for a new homeowner.
Okay. Carol, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, I just, I'm looking at our local regulations about how we make this determination. So it says for the RDA, if a positive determination is issued, meaning that the project will impact an area subject to protection, the applicant must file an NOI. The other way is if the RDA and or the related information, a negative determination means the proposed project will have a minimal impact on an area subject to protection. That's the wording.
Yes.
Then it just comes down to whether we actually, how we define minimal impact here.
Right. Exactly. That's where the decision hinges. Yes, Brian?
I'm sorry to add to this. I knew Allery for several years, and she did come by and advise early on in this project that the porch we were considering putting on should be brought in front of this panel as a RDA. That request, I asked her to look at it, and she did, and came by and said that was the appropriate mechanism to move forward underneath.
Right, and she's right about that. The thing I would say is that what that means is you're coming before us and asking us to determine whether or not we think there will be a more than minimal impact on resource areas from the work. And so you come in through the RDA, but it can split. You can either stay with the DOA, I think that's how or the terminology, but it stays in the RDA track. There's no NOI required. The other is if we determine there is going to be some kind of impact that requires more rigorous conditioning, we would go down the path of having you submit an NOI. So that's where we're really trying to determine. That's what the RDA process is. It's an entry point into making this determination one way or the other. Courtney or Carol, do you have any thoughts? Like, Cindy just expressed herself, Jean, I have, Michael has. Do you have any thoughts about, whether it stays as RDA or whether it goes into an NOI?
I mean, I think for me, I feel like I'm looking again at like exempt activities, and it does bring up this idea of whether the project could create erosion or sediment runoff. I think it's hard to tell. It's a 14 by 15 foot structure is a relatively small amount of runoff.
It's also under an existing maple tree, and it's surrounded by gardens where all the rainwater goes already.
Yep.
We're not really significantly redirecting any precipitation other to places than it already goes.
Okay. Courtney, did you have any thoughts?
I think this could be an RDA. Seems pretty minimal. I agree with Jean that anything that creates more impervious area gives me pause, but I think the location, the topography and the position of the driveway, I don't think this is going to be more than minimal impact.
Okay. Well, and we have some conditions that Joyce, you've laid out here: straw wattle, access from the driveway, the rest of it. I mean, I'd be in favor of what Cindy suggested about the demarcation. Maybe, hold on, maybe we could put in a couple of markers just to note that there, let's go back to the pictures. So what I'm wondering is whether we can do it this thing. Basically like here along this, where it go down below, just maybe 2 markers there that would just say that there's a wetland beyond that.
You can put them right on the trees, right?
Yeah, you could.
Well, there is a wetland on the other side. So I was thinking, I'm in favor of markers. I was thinking 1 marker on either side of the property.
Sure.
Yeah.
That
Or
sounds
two to the left and maybe 2 to the right back.
okay.
Because I
Well,
see a
let's-
couple trees right here that they could go on, which would be very appropriate.
So let's do this. I move that we approve this project as a -3 with the conditions that are in the project summary, and in addition, up to 4 markers to be the location and placement to be determined in concert with the agent.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Brian, do you understand what we mean about the markers?
I believe I understand is this now the norm to have people
Yes.
demarcate?
Yeah,
Even
we've
though
been
the
doing
wetlands
this.
are on other people's properties?
Yeah, we've been doing it on almost every project now, so that we have there's some, as Cindy said, educational thing there and a little less, because we're getting a lot of violations and things. So therefore, this is hopefully cutting down on that going forward.
Yeah, we've had cases where people were asked to put up markers and they didn't. And then when the house sold, people just were like jolly happy going in and doing things in the buffer zone and like further, going into extending their lawn, those kinds of things. So, you, like Cindy said, where everything is, you're a good doobie, but, I'm not trying to tell you to move out, but, plan
If
for
you
the
ever do.
case.
Brian,
right.
did I hear you say that you said something about putting markers on other people's property?
Well, the wetlands over on the left side of the property are essentially off of our property. That's George Fist's land. The other side of our land is 55 Farm, which is undergoing some kind of reconsideration for redevelopment. And behind us is Town Forest.
I guess what we would do in that case is ask you to put up markers on your own property as close to the wetland as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was suggesting you work with the agent. You'll find a good place for them.
Okay.
Yeah, it would not be demarcating the wetland. It would be the jurisdictional area, like at the edge of your landscaped area. You know what I mean? So it probably includes buffer zone. A lot of times we'll have people put it at the 50-foot buffer zone or wherever the landscaped edge is, so that, people don't further encroach, be like, oh, I'll cut down a few more trees and inch inwards toward the wetland. Does that make sense?
I understand.
Great. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Neil, aye. Jean?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, you're free to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stop sharing. All right. We are back on track. All right. Whitney Farm, which is continued from May 20th.
I am here.
Hi, Drew. All right. You were coming back to us with some language. Is that right?
Correct.
Sorry, let me just, I'm trying to do more than one thing at once. Okay. All right, so what, do we need to, we need to review it, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I think it would be, the most efficient thing would be for Drew to, I wish I had time to send you this as a message last week, Drew, but it would be great to have, you know, the existing language and then in highlighted how you were proposing it was changed. But the best we can do right now is for you to, you know, go through what you drafted and sent to us and say, this is a change I'm proposing. This sentence is a
Sure.
change.
And I can share my screen and call up. If you recall, when we started this, I did kind of, I don't know if cut and paste is the right word, but I kind of redlined the existing language and cut out some language. It is different. This version is different than that, but certainly that was the basis of, I use that format to do the new language. So it should be fairly easy to follow. And if you
Great.
want me to call up that old edited one, might make it a little more complicated or confusing than we would like, but I could certainly show that also if we need to flip to it.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Is my video wonky? Or is it just wonky on my end?
Your video of yourself?
Yes.
No,
It's
it's
fine.
fine.
Okay. It's weird on my end. Sorry. So I can, let me just give you a little background of what I sent. So Sanford Environmental Services does both the erosion control inspections and the turbidity monitoring. Okay, so I pulled them in. I picked his brain a little bit about the site specifically and turbidity in general. And he felt how we proposed things as we left, for starters, were certainly reasonable, meaning to inspect only after 1-inch storms, and do turbidity also only after 1-inch storms. So then I was asking him about, I know Michael was talking about turbidity numbers, and I wasn't quite familiar with what turbidity numbers meant in the real world or for these purposes. It was, George is his name, is George's opinion that any turbidity levels of 10 or below are considered low. And that's basically what our site has been. The turbidity readings that we get for this site is really due to storms, rainfalls, kicking up dirt in shallow waters. It's not really based on the construction that we're doing affecting the turbidity of Dopping Brook. So I wanted to kind of get that out there because I didn't quite understand fully what everything meant and what the purpose of some of this monitoring was. So that being said, I added language because I think the commission wanted to, I know I heard that you did not want to abandon the turbidity wholesale, but I added language that if the turbidity was under 10 for the next 6 months, that perhaps we could abandon it eventually. He's been doing this monitoring since I believe it was 2014. So that was the basis of the new language. And I don't know what's best, if you'd like me to call up the new language that I drafted in the letter and just go over it line by line, and we can, like Gene said, kind of compare it to the old. What would the commission prefer?
I think that'd be good.
Okay.
I'll say it was a summary that I read the language fairly carefully and compared it, that in essence, right, you've addressed what we brought up last time. And the 10
Good.
is the number. I do have a change about how long it would go for, but we can come back. That's the only change I would probably suggest, but I'll let you go through it. But it generally addresses the issue that I had brought up last time.
I figured I'd take a shot, and that's why we're having this hearing to talk about it. So, okay, let me share my screen and call that up. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So this is just my cover letter. Just reiterating what we're doing. And here is the language. So this is condition 36 only. That's the only condition on the table. It shall be the responsibility of the applicant and his successors to conduct monitoring, maintenance, and repair of erosion control measures, as well as to take any other additional measures necessary to erosion control from the site such that wetland impacts do not occur. The erosion controls designated on the site plans and described in the order of conditions shall be considered a minimum standard of compliance. In addition, it shall be the responsibility of the applicant to take whatever measures are necessary to prevent any form of wetland impacts not approved within the order. I don't think I changed a word in that opening paragraph.
No, that's,
Sorry?
yes, it's the same.
Erosion control inspector, I also do not think I changed anything other than qualifying that the current inspector and calling it an ECI for simplicity, and that the current inspector is Sanford Environmental Services. Number 2, and again, these numbers are the same numbering system as in the original condition. Erosion control inspections. At least once a month and within 24 hours of a storm event of 1 inch or greater. It used to be, I believe, was it once a week or once every 2 weeks and half an inch. So I changed that based on our discussion to at least once a month and or a 1 inch storm event. The designated erosion control inspector shall conduct a thorough inspection, distribute within or affecting the buffer zones resource area, including construction. I added including construction and staging areas because it came up based on Joyce's initial site visit. There is like a staging area where they keep their materials and things that is always kind of active, as it were, as opposed to us just building a unit here and building a unit there. And that would be the specific areas of the inspection on those new units, as well as the construction staging area. At a minimum, each inspection shall include a visual, the barriers, temporary sediment traps, other erosion control measures, stockpile and staging areas. So this I added, there should no longer be a need to cross Dopping Brook. Any work that requires the crossing of Dopping Brook shall be coordinated and approved by the commission. So again, the history of this site was we installed a gas line going across there. That's long since been installed. We should not be in that area at all anymore. That is now reestablished, stabilized as a meadow. And there is no trucks coming to or from, or vehicles of any kind entering that area, nor should there be. So I threw that in case something came up that we didn't anticipate, that obviously would have to come in front of the commission to enter that area in any kind of construction type way. Precipitation monitoring. The applicant shall obtain and maintain in good working order at the site a precipitation gauge. The applicant shall maintain a log of precipitation at the site for storms 1 inch or greater and make the log available for inspection. I did change that language. The first line is the same, but I changed the frequency to match the 1 inch storms. I didn't see the point of him logging in every drop of rain. So, and that has been going on, by the way. There's a gauge on site. He keeps a log, and keeps that for records. So I just kind of streamlined it per the direction we were going. Turbidity measurements. They should be taken within 24 hours of the 1 inch storm or greater, utilizing the proper equipment operated by the ECI. Turbidity shall be measured in NTUs. That's the same language. So turbidity measurements shall be made at the downstream end of Dopping Pond and immediately upstream of the train tracks. Additional measurements may be taken at the discretion of the ECI, with all inspection results to be reported to the commission. I did limit, there used to be and I can call it up, there used to be a number of areas to measure turbidity that the Sanford letter that I include in here sort of said, there's really no reason to be monitoring those areas based on this project any longer. So I eliminated it except for the ones that he recommended, which I just listed within the passage itself. If turbidity measure, okay, so, and then I added this. If turbidity measurements maintain a level of 10 NTU or below for a period of 6 months, turbidity measurements can be discontinued. Inspection reports. Within 1 week of the completion of an inspection, the ECI shall submit a report of the findings to the commission. The contents of the report shall include, but are not limited to, summary of site status with respect to the area under construction and erosion control measures. So it used to be, you know, it used to say the construction phase of the project, and such it was a large project, you know, we had detention basins going in, major drainage infrastructure, roadways, that's all in now. So now we're just talking about the area under construction, which typically will be a unit or two. B, summary of erosion control measure maintenance and additions conducted during the period since the last inspection. That's the same language. A list of any and all recommended measures for maintenance, repair, or improvement of erosion control measures. That's the same. On to the next page. Results in tabular form of turbidity monitor, same. And each inspection report shall have a certification, which I matched. Just glossing over it, I believe it's exact same.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. And then the Sanford letter follows that. I don't know if we need to go through that but that's the language as proposed.
I only had one concern and one question at the end of number 4. And I think, Michael, you brought this up already, but that if when this turbidity monitoring would stop is described here for a period of when certain conditions occur for a period of 6 months. So I don't know how people feel about that, but that's a pretty short period of time. I would suggest a year.
I have a different suggestion, but build on that. I would suggest changing it to that the number of 1-inch storms isn't that great in a year, but there might be 6 or 8 of them or 6 or so. It's not a great burden. I would prefer to suggest wording that that they continue until the project construction is completed, and continue for up to a period of 1 year after it. But basically, if there are no findings above 10 for a year after completion of construction, I could probably do less, but basically have this, that we still have the measurements going on while there's any construction going on at all. And then maybe say that that you do readings for at least 6 or 12 months, we could talk about it. And then it could be discontinued if the levels are all less than 10 after a 6 or 12 month period after the completion of all construction would be what I'd like to suggest for that. And I'm trying to think on the reporting side, whether any, I guess I'm trying to figure out how it all holds together, that any reporting, that if there are any readings above 10, that somehow that's immediately notified the commission so that we can make sure we do an erosion control check and things like that. Because I'm trying to read how those measurements get folded. I guess within 1 week of an inspection, maybe. I guess, does it work that essentially if you found a reading of greater than 10, it would just be within a week that would be in a report? Is that the way this works?
That's the way I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess I could probably live with that. but whatever. So the main thing is I'm okay with the tracking of it at just 2 points at the bottom of Dopping and then at the railroad tracks. That sort of captures things. But so maybe we would say for a period of 6 or 12 months, depending on how other people feel, after the completion of the project construction. It's just to add that kind of phrase in that last sentence there would be my suggested change.
What do other people think of that?
I think those are good suggestions, Michael. I had one question about the number 5, within 1 week of the completion.
Can I just ask one other question about this before we go to the next? So I'm assuming, I'm just sort of the language I think would be that if there was turbidity measures over 10, that it would kind of reset the count. Like then we would have to go another 12 months or 6 months or whatever that time period is with less than 10 NTUs, and then we could.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Right, on my head it didn't quite cover with that kind of reset.
Well, here's my question for you also, maybe, is that let's say you do have a turbidity measurement like that. I guess once you're out, once you've discontinued it, there's no real way to go back. You know what I'm saying? Like if something happens, or you know what I'm saying? Like once you suspend it and you hope it's okay. But if there's some event where that causes that to happen again, but I guess you can't really leave it that open-ended. Anyway,
Right.
I'm just thinking out loud about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we'd ever know about it anyway.
Right, exactly. I mean, somebody could look in there and say, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And they're going to call us anyway, and we'll go out, and it'll be a separate issue. So I think it's okay to leave it like this.
Yeah, once they have their certificate of compliance, we're done.
Yep. Okay.
Right. I mean, it's that classic. I don't know if there's any things here in perpetuity in the order of conditions about just making sure there's no erosion kind of issues.
Right, but if you have erosion and it's noticed, the commission's going to, it's a jurisdictional area. We're going to go out and look at it, and it's going to be its own thing. We're going to have to,
Right.
come up with some plan to address it and
Right.
condition it and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's okay.
The only other thing with the new wording here is that we should go out and make sure whether the issue that came up last time of whether the erosion control is not in the best shape, and put in place that we probably need to do a little more, whether we need to have
Joyce?
go out there and check it every few months or something like that, just to make sure
Yep.
that kind of stuff is in place. Because now the way it's conditioned here, it's all basically only wearing a visual inspection of areas that have erosion control. So we just want to make sure all that erosion control as needed is in place
Okay.
by our agent.
That's kind of a standard boilerplate statement in all orders, I think.
Yeah, we just have to do it.
Right. Sorry, Joyce, you had your hand up?
Yeah, so Drew, you have a NIPD's permit for this project, don't you?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Joyce.
You have a NIPD's permit for this project?
Correct.
What is the frequency of an erosion control inspections required in that?
I believe it's 1/2 inch.
Okay, and it doesn't have, so it's a 1/2 inch. So I guess the only issue I have is that they're asking to stretch this out to inspections to 1 month for erosion control. And there's no reason why someone can't walk this erosion control barrier more frequently, because at the moment it's not even properly installed at all. So to let it space out for a month, you're going to go a month without knowing. It's such a small area to look at. You're stretching it out for a whole month. It doesn't necessarily have to be reports every time you walk it, but at least you should be walking it at a minimum every 2 weeks. If you don't have to necessarily, I don't feel it needs to have a report back except as required in this order, but it should at least be of a more frequent walkthrough.
Yeah, there is a construction manager on site. I'm not going to say every day, but pretty close. So
there's no reason he can't be tasked with inspecting this erosion control, because if he had been, then what was flapping in the breeze around the entire back end of the project would it be happening?
yes, he's going to have to tighten that up. He takes care of the site. He is there frequently.
Understood.
So we should just add a sentence somewhere in point 2 there about whether we need regular erosion patrolling or whatever to call it. whether it's different than inspections test. I mean, I agree with you, Joyce. It's a matter of whether we just have to add a sentence that even though it's once a month, I guess once it's an inspection, then 1 week, there has to be a report, whether we have to create a new word for it so that basically each time they look at it every 2 weeks doesn't generate a report.
Right.
So we have to have some wording there that at least once a month and say, we could maybe just change the beginning of 2 to say that that at least every 2 weeks and within 24 hours of a 1-inch storm, there's an erosion control inspection, but that inspection reports are due monthly unless there's a finding of something, blah, blah. So we could just add an extra, change it back to the 2 weeks and add in another sentence saying that the reports don't only have to be generated monthly. Is that a way to do it?
That, I think that would work.
I'm surprised to hear that the erosion control is still flapping in the breeze right now.
Well, Drew and I did talk about it, and they are, instead of putting silt fence, he's going to, I believe you talked about mulch sock or straw wattle or some other.
Correct. Staked in like a wattle or a mulch sock. Correct.
Fine out here.
Carol?
So, yeah, and again, I mean, I think, you know, things aren't flapping in the breeze down there. I know there was probably something seen, but the site is in good condition. And I know this just from talking. It's been a little while since I've been out there, but talking to Sanford Environmental, you know, the original erosion controls that we put in to kind of limit the meadow have basically been overgrown by the meadow in a good way. It's created its kind of its own natural barrier. You know, there is no sediment getting into any resource area or their buffers.
I did state that in the last meeting. Nothing is getting beyond that site. That you were very lucky. It's just that
right.
It didn't make sense to have something half installed. That's all.
Sure. No, I mean, I want it buttoned up as well, but I just want to be clear. I do think the property managers are doing their job. I think the site is maintained well. I think the restabilization is in very good condition. I think this is a good project. I know I'm coming at it from a biased angle, obviously, but
well, look,
I like the idea, I guess, of just saying, maybe I could say, we're talking about number 2, you know, frequent, you know, the site manager should be constantly maintaining and monitoring the conditions of the barrier, and a report shall be issued at least once a month. I mean, I suppose I could change it to that, but I feel like we're getting making it harder than it, instead of easier, which is the point. So.
Carol, did you have a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, I was curious whether, you know, the issue that we're flagging about the erosion barriers not being in place, does the report include anything to the effect that if we notice that there are issues, then, you know, you'll provide in that report maybe photographic evidence, like, in other words, include photographs to show, okay, it's in place now? Because maybe I think that might be helpful as well. And maybe it's only triggered by a situation like this where we've actually brought up an omission.
So I would say that falls under 5B here. So as part of the report, there will be a summary of erosion control measure maintenance and additions conducted during the period since the last inspection. So the last inspection would have had language saying this is out of place and that needs to be fixed. And there would be a summary if, in fact, that has been put back in place and that is fixed. So I think that's what that intention of that is for.
So,
and I'm wondering,
as well as C for any other additional recommendations beyond the last inspection.
So Joyce, were you nodding when Drew was talking about adding language that it should be inspected frequently? That would work?
Part. I just don't want to see it limited so that they know they just have to go out once a month. That's all.
Right. Okay. So Drew, you're okay with modifying the language in that regard?
Yeah, and just, frequent monitoring, but report once a month or
Right.
after the 1-inch storm.
Sure. And then the other thing, to go back to the thing that Gene and Michael were predominantly talking about, are you okay with keeping this turbidity monitoring or measurements in place until construction ends and then within a year after that?
Kind of. So I was brainstorming as he was saying it. What was my thought on that? I'm just going up to the language to help me think about it.
Number 4.
There it is, turbidity. Looking right at it. So I was wondering, I know I just finished saying I don't want to make it harder, I want to make it easier, but perhaps if the turbidity was under 10 for 6 months or a year, it could dial down to quarterly. And then if, incorporating again the over 10, if an over 10 number was found, then a new 6 month period would kick in where they would have to meet the under 10 standard. And then this is obviously during the period of construction, and then if they meet that after 6 months, they can go back to quarterly. And then once construction is finished, I suppose you could do it for 6 months post construction would make sense to me.
Michael or Gene, what do you think of that?
I'm getting very confused. Sorry.
I guess, I mean, you're right. You're basically shifting it from 1-inch storms to quarterly at some point, whether that's right, the number of 1-inch storms when I was looking at the data, thanks to another commissioner here, that 4 or 5 times in a year. So I guess that's right. It's not that much less frequent quarterly when you actually look at the data of how many times there are those 1-inch storms.
And it can be quarterly or 1-inch. So a lot of times it'll solve itself. If you do it,
just
at the beginning of the quarter and then the end of the second quarter, it works out. You know what I mean?
I'm almost saying it probably won't make much of a difference. So it's more complicated to say, oh, you had a 1-inch storm on April 30th. When does the quarter start?
Right.
So therefore, I'm almost saying that I think the 1-inch storms are not that frequent, different than the quarterly, that it might be a little simpler.
Okay.
It's a nice job, but I don't think it's worth adding that little complexity of how you define a quarter then.
Sorry, I want to interrupt because it's 8:25 and can we finish this within the next 5 minutes?
Well, I'm going to suggest you something that if you stop, who's sharing the screen?
Sure.
Sure.
I'm going to pull something up here. If you stop sharing.
I'm trying. How do I stop sharing?
There's a little button towards the top, generally below the very top. Often, sometimes there's a stop share.
Michael, you can probably just go ahead and share.
No, I can't share. I tried, but it's not letting me do that. It's at the top of. It's not at the very bottom or at the very top in the middle.
No, it's not coming.
Hold on, I'm going to fix this. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. The little trick, I can change it to only host, and then it blocks you out, and then I change it back, so Michael can do that.
I was just trying to see so I was trying to do this in preparation so we could actually get the words done, so we could actually end this thing, unless we're gonna postpone this again. But yeah, I guess we're getting away from here. I was trying to stick in red very quickly. It's crude since I'm editing a PDF. At least, I guess now we're talking about doing this as frequently. And I'm not crossing out stuff, frequently and within 24 hours of a storm, or greater, then there would be sort of like a comma here. That the designated erosion control could a thorough inspection of the areas being disturbed, blah, blah. I guess we can make it. So if that's what we're basically coming down to, frequently and within 24 hours of storm, comma, the designated blah shall conduct a thorough inspection. I guess it's a little, whether he's going to do a thorough inspection frequently, whether that's good enough for you, Drew, or whether we have to, I'm just trying to do the minimum wordsmithing, but because we're in a hurry, otherwise we could, unless we're going to come back to this. I mean,
I
one
mean,
issue,
I would like to get the input, and I don't mind coming back in a couple of weeks or whenever the next meeting is with revised language that we can all absorb. But I would like to at least kind of work it out with the team here before we leave.
fine, then I guess you're seeing this thing, so somehow we need wording about the frequently doing it there.
Yeah, I got
Obviously,
that.
down below under 5, we have every month, or somehow change every month, an inspection report will be given, so that we're doing
Right.
monthly. And that here, it's basically for a period of, let's say, 6 months after the completion of the project, the turbidity measurements can be can be done. But we have to have a sentence about if there's a finding of over 10,
Right.
and then it starts another 6-month period or something. Are we all happy with 6 months? Or we could revisit that last time. If we change it to 6 or 9 or 12, that's an easy change next time. But I think the other wordings, it's only a matter, I guess we're going to get reports. Well, this has 1 week. I guess the only question is if you're going to go to a monthly report here, that we have something of where if there's a finding of some problems, we need a report within a week. Like if we get a turbidity finding,
Right. Which
or
that covers, I
something
feel
that-
like.
then you'd have to do it quicker than the 1 month thing. So there is a little bit of a change here.
Let's, Cindy, you've had your hand up for a bit, so I want to make sure to get your comments.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify because I did not hear Drew say, but then I just heard Michael repeat it and say that the turbidity measurements would be taken through construction. I'm just clarifying that. Drew, you're agreeing to that through construction and then 6, 9, or 12 months after.
6 months after is what's proposed. Yeah.
Yeah, but through construction.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
You do it
okay.
all through construction, then 6 months after construction is completed. Yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
Just wanted to make
And
sure
then
that we were all.
before we do anything else, thank you, Cindy. Sorry,
you.
if you have something else, please keep going. That was it, Cindy.
Okay, we're done.
All right, but hold on. Jean a while back had mentioned she wanted to ask a question about something in 5, so I want to make sure we address that as well.
It's actually been addressed already.
Great. All right. Do we have anything else to hash out?
And then after this 6 months period, which starts, say, after we approve this, there's a 6 months period to start. And if they're under 10, we can go to quarterly. Is that
After construction you're talking about, or?
no, that's during construction.
I mean, the quarterly thing is going to be hard to define.
No, it won't. I do these inspections all the time. We got calendars and we're all over it.
Okay, again, this is my question then, because, so I thought through construction, you would continue to do this and then the 6 months starts up after construction. Is that not?
He's saying he's doing it through construction, but he wants to do it quarterly versus after every 1-inch storm. And I'm sort of concerned a little bit if we get a very big storm.
I agree with you.
Quarterly, I would rather stick with after the 1 inch. I don't think you're going to find a much greater frequency.
So just to make it clear, it gets approved. There's a 6 months period that we do it after every 1-inch storm. If during that 6 months period, starting after this approval, so let's say in 2 weeks, after that 6 months period, if they're all under 10, we go to quarterly. If
No,
anything goes above 10 in any of those quarterly inspections until throughout the construction of the project, it triggers another 6 months period.
I feel uncomfortable about going to quarterly reverse because I don't think you're going to find it that much different. I don't like the quarterly.
Let me recap because Drew, I think you're putting an extra wrinkle in there that I think is a little confusing, at least to me. The way I see it is we stay with what it says there now every month. And I think Michael's point is every month through construction. Then whether it's 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months after the end of construction, if it's all below 10, then they go away and that's it.
That's how I understood it, how
Okay.
Neil just said it.
But we're not even doing it monthly. It's just after 1-inch storms.
So during construction, it's after 1-inch storms. After constructions, we go 6 months doing it every month. And if we never get anything.
It's still 1-inch storms. after
1-inch storm,
construction.
but
So the monthly is out, is what you're saying.
The monthly is just the reporting thing. We never had monthly in here. The
Okay,
monthly is
I'm
just-
sorry, then I'm confused. Fine. So after 1-inch storms and then within 6 months after construction, if any, so then what is the quarterly thing at all? Then I don't.
I threw that in just to minimize them. I did that.
Don't worry
That was
about
me.
it. I
That was me.
agree. Then let's go through construction 6 months after, and then if you're good, then we're done.
Yes, great.
Great. Okay. Drew, do you have everything you need?
I'm gonna say yes.
Great. So you'll go finalize the language. Do any other commissioners please speak now or forever hold your peace?
I just want to tell Drew that if he gets lost in revamping the language, we can always send you the recording.
Yeah.
The
you can reach out to one of us.
recorded order.
The recording of this meeting.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yes.
Or you could just give us a call or email.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Somebody
I'm
will
sure
steer you right.
He doesn't want to experience this again.
All right. So, okay, great. Well, in that case, Drew, go off and finalize and so Elizabeth, can we put him on the next meeting agenda?
This is a continuing hearing.
Yes, so we can continue it to July 1st at 10 p.m. Or if you want to wait till July 15th, I can give you 7:30.
True.
True?
July 1st at 10 p.m. That's a Thursday, like typical.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and try that. Let's see if we can do it then.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.
Okay. All right. Next is we've got an RDA for 38 Meadowbrook septic installation.
Yeah, you have to do a motion to continue the hearing and take a vote because it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was this an NOI? I thought it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's a hearing. It's
It's
not.
an actual hearing.
Fine. I move that we continue this hearing until July 1st at 10 p.m.
Second,
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Neil, I, Michael,
Aye.
Courtney,
I
Carol?
Hi.
Is that everybody? Because I see Jean's.
Cindy, I.
Oh, Cindy, sorry. I took my glasses off and I was suddenly utterly blind.
And she has left her seat.
Jean has
Do you
left the
remember us?
building. What?
You remember any of us?
Well, all your names start with C, which really throws
If we're
me
not,
off.
if we're not visually before his eyes, it's out of sight, out of mind.
I guess.
No, I'm looking at the agenda and I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? And I'm like, then I've got to call back to vote some
It is.
momentous
Oh.
occasion.
I
Okay.
never noticed all the Cs.
I know it's tough. All right, so great. Then we're done there. Okay, so we've got the RDA for 38 Meadowbrook.
Yeah.
And do we have somebody presenting it? Joyce, are you going to do it, or do we have some of the?
Oh, I believe
applicant?
Dan McIntyre's here.
Okay, wonderful. There he is. You're muted.
Can I go ahead and share my screen?
Please.
Alrighty. Where'd it go?
You missed the vote, Gene.
I'm sorry. Had to go tell my family members to get quiet down.
Are you seeing the plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is 38 Meadowbrook, constructed in the mid 60s. The system has gone into failure and the homeowners are looking to get it replaced. So this is at the kind of Meadowbrook, just dead ends right at their driveway. Gray Road is another spur that just dead ends right at the edge of their property. There is the MDC aqueduct runs right along the southern side of their property, and there's a wetland above that, which discharges through a stone channel across the aqueduct, through a drainage channel down to a larger wetland on the other side of Meadowbrook Road to the north, to the top of the page. The existing septic system is right in the area of the proposed septic system here in red. The septic tank is right here. We're proposing to replace that with a new septic tank, a pump tank, and an an innovative alternative system using the Elgins. There's a very high groundwater table here. It's at about 36 inches below grade. So we need to raise this up. So it's going to be mounded, and we're proposing a small retaining wall here to keep the grading and the drainage away from going into the house. We pulled a 50-foot and 100-foot buffer shown in the yellow off the intermittent stream and the wetlands on the other side of the aqueduct. So it does encroach into the property. All the work's going to be within the 50 to 100-foot buffer for the septic system. And then there's going to be some ancillary grading over here in the lawn area to smooth it all out. Oh. Did I lose you? I lost
No.
the screen there for a minute.
Oh,
Okay.
we're fine.
No, we're good.
All right. So we're proposing some erosion controls along the edge of the lawn here. This is all disturbed. I sent some pictures with the RDA so you can see what the area looks like. But this is all lawn area now. We're going to restore it as lawn area. There's very little risk of impact to a resource area, given the topography of how this wetland is above the work area. And the contour lines tend to run drainage down toward these toward the south, I guess, or toward the north. And we've got erosion controls along the intermittent stream and down in here. Construction access is going to be away from the intermittent stream off of Gray Road. We're going to come right across the front lawn and do the work from this area here. So with that, I can open it up to questions.
I don't have any.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions either.
Yeah.
I know this property well, and it's exactly as Dan has described it, and he did a good job describing everything and hitting all the main points with erosion and access and where everything's located. So I don't have any questions at all.
I don't either.
Me neither.
There's nothing else to do here.
Yeah. Joyce, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, the aqueduct acts as a physical barrier between the project and the wetlands. It's higher than the wetlands, so I thought it was fine.
Okay.
So the only conditions are the erosion control and no
Stockpiling.
stockpiling and jurisdiction.
Right. And restoring disturbed areas. Yep.
That they would do it, right.
Okay.
We approve. You want to make a motion?
Well, you go ahead.
I move that we approve the project and with a determination of a -3 with the conditions we just described.
Second. Cool. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, aye. Michael?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
All right. The motion carries. You're all set, Dan.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Look at us. All right. So we've got 20 minutes or 19 minutes. What do you want to do next? You want to do some minutes?
Sure.
I can pull them up.
Let's
How about
do it.
DPW?
What about, is there anyone waiting for something?
yes.
Like Sean?
DPW director's waiting.
Oh, we could do that.
Let's do that then. No sense in having everyone stay up until 11 o'clock at night.
We're not staying up till 11, guys.
Okay, what is the DPW issue here?
It's the within the last 48 hours comment that I made that it came to our attention yesterday and the day before that the DPW crew was doing work in the jurisdictional area in a couple of places, and neither Elizabeth nor I could remember getting any advance notification. And those two places are brush clearing and on the beach in Farm Pond, and clearing for a pathway, I believe, at Whitney Farm that is connected to the construction of the rail trail.
There was also mowing at, like, roadside mowing where Coolidge meets Speen Street. And I thought that last year we had discussed that. I don't know if Allery had reached out to you, Sean, about that. It's like that little nubbin of land, that one house that's like half in Sherborn or Natick or whatever on Speen Street. There's like a resource area, and like I don't know if you guys had a discussion about mowing that area and maybe not mowing it again, and it got mowed.
Well, I never have.
I think it's the area across from Coolidge where there is wetland vegetation that we were trying to preserve, and maybe last year or the year before it was mowed down, and I know for sure that we reached out and said, don't mow that.
Well, you didn't reach out to me, but I know for sure we're going to continue to mow that until somebody comes up with a different way to make it safe. That's part of the road right away. And it's incredibly dangerous to not keep that cleared.
The whole area, or
the area opposite Coolidge was not overgrown. It was not brushy. It was Joe Pye weed.
Yeah.
It was maybe 3.
Whatever it was, it's getting mowed as all the roadsides are. If we want to go out and check the sight lines, we can, but that's pretty much what was mowed. Is the site, when you're on Speen Street, you need to be able to see up Kendall, and that's what was mowed. There's still actually a tree that has now grown up because we've not been maintaining it. That's probably going to get cut back.
But so point, if I could just
this picture. So it's more than the sight line. Hold on. You guys can keep discussing and I can get the picture.
Jean, hold on. Jean tried to get a word in before, so just let her do it, and then Michael, you can go.
I do not have the general maintenance order of conditions in front of me, but my memory is that it approves work in the jurisdictional area, but there has to be some advanced notice, an email or a phone call to the office saying that, that this work is going to be conducted.
Yeah, and your memory is serving you correctly, because I exactly remember that same thing, Jean, when we discussed the renewal of that order of conditions for them to conduct maintenance. And that's what we discussed, and you were right.
Added detail about the work that's going on, or maybe is already finished at Whitney Farm, is that I believe what was reported, the work that was reported that was done there in the last few days was approved with the solar array order of conditions for Whitney Farm. But unfortunately, it looked to me like that order of conditions has expired. But again, even regardless of the expiration, we require an advanced notification that work in the jurisdictional area is going to occur. It's not a matter of approval, it's just letting us know.
Right, so there's a couple things. Let's just start with, I want to, as a common courtesy, if you're going to bring things up, I was forwarded Tom Trainer's email, but that was by Jeannie Guthrie. And you guys added something inside of 48 hours to your agenda and didn't invite me. So I would suggest you not do that again, because I work 24 hours a day. I get emails 24 hours a day. I get calls. I respond to things. I've given up my night to be on this meeting, so I wasn't on the agenda, except I'm not quite sure what one of the future items is. But if you're going to talk DPW, you should at least give me the courtesy to be here.
Sean, can I interrupt you for just one moment? Yeah. Nobody's trying to be discourteous. You were here, Addie was here. It came up because we've been notified within the last 48 hours. If you don't want to discuss it tonight, we're happy to put you on the next agenda. It's really as simple as that.
It's not that I don't want to discuss it. I didn't have the common courtesy of a single person on this commission to forward me the email from Tom Trainer. Which was what prompted you to add an item. You could have.
Okay, well,
Hey, Tom, we're
listen,
going to add DPW.
it's also a two-way street. It's in the general order of conditions that you're to notify the Commission of Work and jurisdictional areas ahead of time. We don't feel like chasing you either. So that goes both ways. We're happy to have a civil conversation with you. So let's set it up so that it meets the needs of both parties.
Again, I work on 56 miles of roadway, and I assure you more than 2/3 of it is within your jurisdiction. And we brush mow every single day between now and September. So I can't call you every day and let you know we're working in your area.
But also, Sean, part of it is sometimes we might talk about an issue because we don't know if we want to bother you yet until we talk about what it is. And if it turns out that there's something we need to discuss with you, then we would come out of a meeting and say, oh yes, let's go talk to Sean and ask him to come to a meeting. So sometimes you don't get what you're calling common courtesy. It's just the fact that we're doing just a preliminary discussion to decide that, oh, this is something we should talk to Sean about or not. So it's not like we're trying to, it's not a matter of whether we were courteous or not courteous. It's a matter of sometimes it's just respectful of that. We don't want to, until we figure out what the issue is, that we want to bother you. So, and so it can go either way. So there's nothing that it's part of our own process of figuring out what's going on and knowing that, oops, let's talk to them.
Okay.
So we don't make any decisions.
I guess I felt like it raised to the level that I should be here. So
but we never would make any decisions that are of any consequence without first talking with you about this kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's why it goes that way. I was going to make the other comment, going back to other things that I started to say before, if we could break this up into parts, whether that property on, around Speed Street and Coolidge, whether for all the discussing we can go on here, whether we just arrange some sort of site visit and we arrange some sort of demarcation of what's a line of sight and what we think should be preserved for the wetlands. And
let's
go out there, pick a site, pick a place, time to do it, and pick a marker or two, and then it's done for future reference.
Let's do that because no mowing doesn't work.
Right. No, we'll just find something.
If we went too far, that's fine too.
Want me to show the picture?
You could show it, or we just go out there and do it. Or we're going to do it as a picture.
Yeah, Courtney, if you have the picture, let's look at it, and then we can do both.
I guess.
All right, we'll see what happens. What the frig zoom?
Hopefully, the DPW has a rock or a block or something we could just plunk down there to demarcate.
Yeah, well, I think if there's like a tree there, and I don't know if it's the one that Sean is talking about moving.
Yeah, we could decide whether it has to be cut or not and be done.
It would also be interesting to know, like, I don't know, I've had the road in front of me brush hogged so many times, and I can't remember whether that can be adjusted so that it could be a little bit higher, like 3 feet or something. Sean, you would know about that. So that in some cases we can preserve vegetation rather than mowing it right down.
Actually, that's a perfect picture right there.
Yeah, I know.
Can you see this? You can totally appreciate the sight line.
Yes. So, but what my question is, I thought, because I know Allery had said some of this needed to be mowed for sightline, but you know, if you're driving, it's like, is my cursor showing up?
Yeah.
Okay, so like this seems to me to be a sight line. Like this over here going into like the wetland vegetation seems to be a bit much.
Maybe,
yeah.
From this picture, I agree.
Yeah. So
that tree.
The back side of the tree, I don't think that's the tree I'm talking about.
No, you're probably up here somewhere. Maybe.
I think there's something else much smaller up the street. We got to meet out there. I agree. It probably didn't need to go to the back side of that tree.
So that tree can be a marker.
Right. But you got to remember, as you know, pictures are a snapshot in time. When we don't clear year after year after year, the things that can't be brush mowed anymore become trees,
No, I know.
other invasive species that climb right out onto the road, like at Carol's house. And then
Yeah.
it looks really abrupt when you cut 5 years worth of growth when you weren't doing it every year.
Yeah, but this was mowed, I want to say last year,
No,
and it was a meadow type thing. So I totally get you need to mow this, because if you had a tall meadow here, it would totally obscure the road. But I think if we're staying on this side, it's roadside mowing, it would be normal.
right.
I think it would be good to have a site visit, because I don't even know exactly where the wetlands are here, I mean.
Over here.
It looks pretty heavily mowed, and if that's actually wetlands, it's probably pretty dried out at this, it would dry it out quite a bit because of the vegetation cover being gone, but I think Michael's suggestion is a good one.
We just have to find some sort of markers to put there. So when you do the site, you figure out where the marker should go, and you put something down so we get it all done at once and see how it works. And
On
where
how
we
does
should do
your
it.
planning work? Like, how do your guys know where to go and not go? Or
It depends on the area. This is one that we either start having a lot of accidents at because people are T-boning each other, or we have several complaints. We had several complaints. It's not like we're not all blind. We're behind right now on the roadside mowing because
yeah,
we all just voted the other day to buy one. So, a good spring and wet weather keeps the roadsides growing so fast, we can barely keep them down. And it may not seem like a big deal, but when cars start getting T-boned at some of these intersections where you can't see out.
oh, I know. Just trying to go on and off of Green Lane at Hunting Lane is sketchy.
I know, I got a mirror for you, actually.
I've been waiting for that.
Sitting next to my desk, I gotta hang it. But so, the guys know the areas. And we discussed this, and I hadn't been involved in that, so I know it wasn't last year.
Okay.
And he mentioned it to me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, hold on, let me look. And I drove back from Natick the other day and saw the sightline issue and said, well, you got to go out there and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So let's go. So that one perhaps should have been a site visit. It's tough to hit every single spot in a year.
Yeah, sure.
And actually get out of the car. That's not the best place to jump out and look at.
No, like.
There is a parking.
What?
There's other areas that we literally mow 3 times a year to keep back from basically from Carol's house to Maple Street is one of the worst places in town to try to mow and keep safe and keep back. We destroy mowers up there.
Yeah, it has terrible sight lines all along there.
So we've dealt with this one, or you could bring some markers out there, or whoever wants to go. Who wants to go?
Whoever wants to go, reach out to me and figure out when you want to go.
Okay. Jean, I want to make a general comment before we finish, but Jean, if you had something specific.
I have 2 things I want to address. Sean, are you saying that there was an item on the agenda and you weren't notified about it? Are you referring to the item Pine Hill School project?
No. I met with the ad of the farm pond thing.
The thing that we added because it occurred in the last 48 hours.
Right.
Okay, and I want to explain the mention of the Pine Hill School project in our list of discussions came up. I don't know. We got notification from, I suppose, the guy who's contracted to do the work at Pine Hill School, asking, do I need anything from conservation? And we had email exchanges going back and forth between Elizabeth and this fellow and Joyce, and it was clarified to him that he needed to file a request for an administrative approval, and he did that promptly. And Joyce ran out there and looked at it, and it was all fine. That's why that item was on the agenda, but then it was resolved before tonight, so it didn't need to be discussed after all.
Yeah, no, that one's fine. I was involved in that one.
Okay, but my other thing that I wanted to point out was the discussion that we just had about that Coolidge area that's been mowed, that is a wetland, is exactly the kind of discussion that gets initiated when it's necessary between the agent and the DPW when we get advance notification. And it doesn't have to be a week, it could be a couple of days or what have you. But that is what is, that's why it's specified in the general maintenance order of conditions, is to let us know in case we have, and if there's some situation like this one, that where the agent could run out and say, it doesn't need to be this much mowing. It seems like this would be sufficient and you would agree and everything would be fine. And I just want to reiterate that this is not a matter of permission. It's just a matter of working together and notification.
Actually, that's a good example of how I disagree with you. The order of conditions allows me to mow the roadsides. We are having a discussion now on it. We disagree where we should mow, or maybe we agree and the right thing wasn't done. I'm not going to offer advance notification every time we go out and mow and where we're going to mow. I'm not doing that, and the order of conditions does not require that. Actually, the roadside mowing needs to be done. I don't call you up and let you know how many tons of sand and salt I'm going to put on the roads before a snowstorm, and I'm not going to notify you when we're cutting grass, weeds, or anything else on the side of the road. That's not the intent of the order of conditions. Now, if we cut too far off that road, that's fine. We can go out and discuss that. But the next time we mow it, you're not going to be notified before we mow it. That would add such a level of complexity to my operation that we'd never even be able to get anything done.
Well, as I said,
probably going to be mowing on Western Ave for the next 2 days. There's no need to notify you. We were mowing on Washington Street last week, right by the wetlands. There was no need to notify you. It just takes place. That's what happens.
If I could, as I said at the very beginning of this discussion, I believe, it's my memory, that that's what's in the order. If you don't want that language in there anymore, then we have to meet to discuss to modify the language.
I don't believe that language is in there, and I don't believe anyone's ever been notifying you on the 60 straight days when we.
Well, that may be the case.
Right, and I actually think, if I can jump in here, I do think that I'm looking at the order and it is in there. So, and if that's not practicable, or if it's not practical to have that because of what you're saying, Sean, I think we'd be open to modifying that. But it does say DPW workers will be required to provide written notification to the conservation agent prior to working within jurisdictional areas. And here's where maybe the language is where what you would point to, which is it says where practical. So if you're saying it's not practical, that's, maybe we can have a further discussion about it. The other thing I did just want to chime in on just generally is, Sean, just to just reassure you, the commission does not want to have discussions without your input and without your presence when we think it's raised, as Michael is pointing out, it's raised to a level where it requires DPW's involvement. A lot of times we talk, in our discussion items, there's all manner of things that revolve around people and places in town that we don't invite them because we do need to have those preliminary discussions. We are not trying to catch anybody. We're not trying to sneak something past anybody. And we're certainly, if somebody sends us an email, we're just going to try and be as responsive as we can. We've got more than enough work to do that we don't want to add anything by trying to kind of, not communicate well. We're just trying to do the best we can. So, we know that you're trying to do the same. So we'll just keep that up.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay, let's move on because we've got, it's 9 o'clock and we've got to do our next thing. So we've got the SFTA discussion regarding trail maintenance order of conditions.
Yes.
I hear Seth and I see Kelly there as well.
Yeah, Kelly and I are here. I'm not going to turn my video on because this camera is quite bad.
Okay.
Seth, before you start, can I say there are two actually quite different amendments.
Right.
We want to spend most of the time, particularly given your discussion at the last meeting about bridges. But it seems to us that you have pretty much agreed to approve the trail maintenance one. And maybe we can just get that finished with before going to the bridges.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to show them the language that you put together, Paul?
I can't bring it up, but everybody's got it.
Okay.
Do you want me to bring it up or what?
If you have it, Michael, go for it.
Sure. Is that working? Big enough for people?
Yep, that's
Um,
good.
Zoom
Could
in
be a
on-
little bigger if you can.
Sure. How does that work?
maybe
One more.
more Zoom.
What's that? You want it bigger?
Yeah,
One more.
Bigger?
Zoom
Bigger.
also lets you zoom. You can do view options and zoom in.
Yeah,
Keep
I'm
going.
just doing it one by one just to see.
That's fine. I can see that.
Okay, I was just trying to get more of it on the page, but okay. Up to you, Kelly, or whatever, or are we
Or
basically?
just, I think that based on the discussion we had before, you're okay with this. There is one part of the discussion which is incorporated in here in a little bit unexpected way, which is that there was a third activity which was about disposing of the brush. And I deleted that because there seemed to be some flux in how the disposal should work. So I left it to simply to in accordance with best management practices as identified by the commission. I would note that we have been heading in the direction of laying the branches and trees parallel to the trail, but the AMC criteria, which you list in the appendix, says vertical. So I think maybe just a little bit new thought might go into what these best management practices are. And of course, we'll follow them. But these are the two activities that would really be covered.
Can Seth or Kelly, either of you comment on the general familiarity that the member of the board of directors has with the best management practices?
So far as I know, we don't have the best management practices yet. You have to tell us what those are.
I thought that they were part of the order of conditions as an appendix.
They are, but as I said, the way they're phrased, it says lay them vertical to the trail with the stump facing out. But everybody has been talking instead about the preference for laying them parallel and right next to the trail. And we talked last time about a back and forth and interactive process. And I assumed that the commission anticipated that the best management practices would evolve.
I was just talking about the best management practices as a whole, because there's more to it than just that.
Of course, but that was the example that had most been referred to.
Question is whether we're leaving the best management practices as something that can change over time. It's just identified, and we have the choice as the commission to, from time to time, say, here are the best management practices for these activities. And
Yeah.
we just get to do that when we get around to it or find them or they change. And so that the order of conditions is just a little more flexible.
The activity that I deleted here, which is still in section 14, says to remove the cuttings and so forth from any resource area. But that is not practicable in quite a few situations. It just seemed like better practice to delete that specific criterion, that specific practice, and develop some best management practices as time goes on.
Yeah, that's an additional, that's a change to 14, is what you're saying.
I'm saying
that
yes,
that
yeah.
issue is removing, but if we just focused on 13 at the moment, we're just adding this new text right here because it replaces these two items are being moved out of 14. We just have a new number 4, which is, I mean, I could show you the other ones. Number 4 is under 13. It says no notification to the commission will be required for the following activities. There's 1, 2, 3 things like signs and maintenance. And then this is a new 4, which I think is fine. I like the idea that we could specify the best management practices as we see that has evolved. I'm okay with this text and word for 4.
I refer to the finding B of the OOC, and it's right up in front of the order of condition that the commission will develop best management practices for the activities covered by the order of conditions.
So Kelly, you're basically saying it's already there in the beginning of the OC.
The mandate to the commission to develop best management practices, yes, it's right up in the front.
Right.
Yes, it literally says B. Site appropriate BMPs will be identified by the commission or one of its agents and employed in order to protect the surrounding resource areas from any negative impacts resulting from the proposed work. Close quotes.
I'm wondering if there should be mention in, as we're changing, adding things to 13, if there should be mention of the methodology that you described to us the last time of following up, 6 months or a year's worth of activity with a report.
Well, that's in there too. When
I'm
reported,
sorry, where is that?
that's the last phrase of the preamble.
Oh, okay.
Practices, and then when reported to the commission by Forest and Trail Association in such form and schedule as the commission may prescribe.
So we don't want to put that form and schedule in this language?
You specifically anticipated at the last meeting that this would evolve.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd rather leave it open-ended myself, because then it's still within our sort of purview to make that judgment. But yes, we can, let's say we set up something and it turns out it's just too frequent or it's not frequent enough, then we can always change it later. I like this language.
Me too.
Any other comments from the commission?
I would just note one thing, which I think hasn't always been clear in our internal discussions, that number 13, number 2 under 13 says that another thing that does not require notification is installation of signs and kiosks to educate the public about boundaries, permitted and restricted land uses and natural resources. And I'm only bringing that up because we've had discussions about signs and kiosks, and I didn't realize till I just read it just now that the Sherborn Forest and Trail can go ahead and install those without notification to the commission.
Could we please not?
I'm not suggesting we change it. I'm just noting it for people to know because of the discussions that we've had.
I don't think that refers to a discussion of what the content of the sign means. It's rather whether a sign that we've all agreed on, has been approved, what have you, can be installed in the jurisdictional area.
Well, it doesn't, that's not the wording.
I think that is unnecessary for this purpose.
Okay, other comments? Okay. Is this the only change along, not the bridge and trail relocation? Is this the totality of the changes here, or what else do we have to look at?
No, this is everything for routine maintenance
Okay,
And it doesn't touch the bridge work.
right,
This is all right from 13.
okay.
And we would hope that you would vote on this one, and then we can move on to the bridge work.
Okay. All right, well, I move that we accept these changes as, as written here and then also discussed.
Second,
Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, I, Michael?
aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Okay, all right, that motion passes.
Thank you, folks.
So if I could just share my screen, would that be okay? I just have,
Sure.
I'll try to keep it really quick. I think I'll be able to. Because you will, I think the theme and the intent is understood. These are very similar to the slides that I had last time. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so this one we're going to talk about bridges and why we think this would be helpful, what the problems are. Okay, let's just go on. So our kind of problem statement is that the commission is often unable to ensure that the wetlands are protected because bridges are often built, kind of ad hoc bridges are built, there's no notification, and often things just go unmaintained. These are kind of the ongoing activities that I call them the. When you see my screen, can you see Michael? Or only can I see that?
Can we see Michael? Yes, I can.
Like
Okay.
on my screen share, like is he in the middle of my slide?
No,
No.
he's on the side.
Because I keep moving him to get him out of the way. I didn't know if he was blocking the view.
Oh, what? Get out of the way.
Maybe you, Seth, maybe you have to change your view.
As the mother might say, you're hovering, Michael.
Oh, geez. Sorry, Seth.
Is he pinned? Is his face pinned?
It's fine. I minimized it and kind of moved him. So this is kind of the current state of the world. And if I guess my kind of comment is if this is all fine with you guys and there's no problem to be solved, but I think you would agree that there is, there's very often a lot of unauthorized bridges built. We have some photos of those later. Very often when an area gets wet, a new trail is created, often through, something else that might be also a wetland, but not wet at the time. So you get multiple trails created. You have trails widened. So the muddy areas get larger and the wetland gets more damaged. And the trails are just left muddied, which is not a good state for them. So here's some pictures of unmaintained trails. So you can see here, if you can see my cursor, there's multiple trails going on through here. So, instead of one narrow trail going through the wetlands, you have, just a network of stuff. Here's another one with two, a lower one and an upper one. And the same thing going on down here. So I think you're all familiar with these kind of problems. And what's the result of these unmaintained trails is just more damage to the wetlands, uncontrolled trails. Here's, sometimes I have unauthorized and ineffective. Some of these, this one, for example, is unauthorized. And I know you all went and looked at it and it is effective for a footbridge. These are barely effective. This is we don't know what kind of wood is being thrown in here. And this blocks up the stream and makes the stream wider. Here's another one, some, bigger oak one. I don't know what this stuff is. This is in Leland Mills, but you see these things aren't really good for the wetlands, and they're not. Some of them are not particularly good for hikers. Here's a couple more. You can see a number of attempts here to block the stream, and here's some other. And this looks like cedar fencing. So how SFTA can help. So currently, our experience is showing us, and all these photos are showing us that the NOI is really, it's a big barrier for people to build bridges. And these are kind of some things that I noted, you know, time consuming. SFTA and other people that are doing trail maintenance or volunteers, and you know, there's close to 100 miles of trails. And there's many areas where these, especially the small, simple kind of plank bridges that would prevent a lot of those multiple trails getting created. Is, you know, we kind of have a 20 plus things marked off, but there's likely more. NOIs cost money each time. You have to assemble all of the butters, and it's just it's enough of a barrier that unless it's a really significant bridge, and I think you can agree this is your experience. If it's, you know, we've worked with Concom on bridges that are really significant that we think have high value because the amount of effort is high to actually do it. And stuff that's small, it's just not, you know, it's just not worth the effort. There's so much else to do, and so they go unmaintained. And so our amendment is that we amend the current OOC, or we can come up with a new OOC. That would be fine too. There's a couple different ways of doing it, but effectively create a process in which Sherborn Forest and Trail can build bridges in coordination with the Conservation Commission, but it can be done in a much easier way. You know, maybe involve only in talking with conservation agent, maybe having a site visit, depending on probably having a site visit. We can figure those things out, but just something that's a lot easier and simpler. And this way it would enable, you know, Sherborn Forest and Trail and hopefully other folks will get involved and say, hey, that's not a bad process. It's not too much of my time. I'm going to go build a couple bridges this weekend, you know, so they could meet with you guys, and they'd obviously have to plan it. They couldn't do it last minute, but it would be just the barrier so much lower that they would enable folks to do this in a good way. So you wouldn't have bridges built, you know, that are potentially dangerous or potentially using materials you don't want used or put in a bad place. All those things, that's today's, you know, kind of standard. So we're hoping that if we can facilitate these bridges being built, we'll reduce the amount of damage that's being done. You know, basically we'll improve the health of these wetlands in these kind of areas. And I think my last slide just points again to that Weston OOC that we found that kind of is a similar process. And
So,
thank you for listening.
I just had one comment because I think it's a good thing to think about. I don't know that I would want to allow it with notification, just like if you were to go, you know, currently and just go do some trail clearing, but and I know we're modifying that, but I can see some middle ground, some sort of that makes it easier to lower the barrier, as you're sort of discussing, like, you know, almost like an RDA process without the fee, where you would come and propose something and we'd make a determination of whether or not it was significant enough to require something like an NOI, or if it's something that, yeah, you know, like maybe we establish some standard materials to use or techniques to use. And if we think it's kind of like just an overall improvement and a low risk, then maybe we sort of just kind of sign off on it like as an RDA. I don't know what other commissioners think about that, but this is what this makes me think of.
Yeah, I think that's along the lines of what we were thinking as well.
Neil, when you imagine that, do you imagine this would be a process that anybody in town could use who wanted to build a bridge? I don't know how, Neil, I don't know how we could, you know, make it particular for this one activity with one group. And
why not?
Well, if somebody's doing an activity, building something in a resource area, I mean, I don't think the justification that, you know, people are breaking the rules now, so therefore we should bend the rules so that maybe they'd be less likely to break them. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. Sorry.
Respond to that quickly.
Sure. Go ahead, Seth.
I think I don't want to think about this in terms of rule breaking and allowing things that we don't want. And my proposal is trying to show that this is about protecting the wetlands more. Right now, people are going out and breaking them, and then, oh, we're going to bend the rules so that they won't be breaking them, but they'll still be doing stuff. I think I want to think about it not as forget about rule breaking, but right now, the bridges get built and things get damaged, and I think we can do a better job. And this is how I think we can do it. I'm not interested in as much about kind of policing the rules. I'm interested in improving the trail and the protection of the wetland. I think this will help that.
I don't disagree with the general concept, but my only concern is that, I just want to make sure that from a regulatory standpoint and how we're consistent in handling other things, because, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you just think, well, other people are doing activities, in wetlands that are, violations. And
Right.
I just want to make sure whatever we decide here doesn't mean we're giving special treatment to one group and not another. You know what
Right.
I mean?
And if I can just let me sort of respond, because Courtney, you kind of asked me the question specifically, how I think about it. And I guess what I would say is that anybody who would propose work in a jurisdictional area, we would want them to come before us before they do the work, right? So I think that's what we're requiring here as well. And I do think, and I don't take it that, oh, well, it's worse if we don't do anything, as sort of, that's not my motivation. The idea of actually having some sort of cookie cutter, very low square footage things that actually are more protective of the resource areas themselves, that we get to decide whether it's significant enough that it requires more oversight like an NOI. I think, in other words, I think there's going to be, if we were to take the totality of bridge proposals we might see, I think some of them are going to end up in NOIs, but some of them might not. And maybe we could set a few standards, best management practices, just like we've done for this other stuff, that will allow us to kind of do the protective stuff that we need to do from a regulatory perspective, while at the same time having, this whole order for SFTAs, they're sort of a trusted partner, right? So maybe we can sort of construct it in a way that makes people feel like ultimately we are being more protective rather than less. So I just want to say that, but Kelly, you've had your hand up, so let me just let you recognize it.
I just want to comment, Neil, on the RDA approach and point out that actually the Section 14 process is exactly like an RDA, because we come to you a month in advance and it's clear in Section 14 that anytime the commission thinks this should get an NOI, you say so, and we have to submit an NOI. It's a clearing process with the expectation, obviously, that most of them are not going to be an NOI, and we work out with you exactly how the project is done. And I think it is, the procedure is cleaner in Section 14 than it is in the RDA regulations.
Well, the only difference I think, though, is that notification is a simpler thing than an RDA. RDA, you have to present certain basic materials. Like, I really envision all of that stuff being there for something like this, because I think Courtney's correct to point out that it is work in not only in jurisdictional areas, but often in resource areas themselves. And that requires sort of a heightened level of scrutiny that goes beyond a notification. It's something where it's a presentation. And I could even envision creating some required submitted materials and all that. But again, it's still something less than an NOI, which it is I don't want to call it a cumbersome process, but it is a complex process. And it may be a deterrent when again, some of these things might be really straightforward and no brainers as long as we get our eyes on them. So anyway, Jean, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, you made the suggestion earlier, which was a good one, that the first step, rather than putting these activities into section 14. Keep them apart from section 14, have them be proposals, RDA proposals, and there are specified requirements for the information that's required with an RDA in our regulations. So have them come to us as RDAs with that level of detail. I would also suggest maybe bunching, I don't know what people think of this, but bunching a few very similar bridges or what have you together into one RDA. Maybe that's a stretch, I'm not sure. But,
what about things like fees and that kind of stuff? That's the only partly why I'm sort of avoiding.
if work is done on town land, the fees are waived. And
Okay.
an RDA does not require a butter notification. What an
Okay.
RDA does, as has already been said, is it gives the commission the opportunity to evaluate whether or not an RDA is enough. And I just want to make this other point or remind everybody that when a presentation is made to us with an application in a meeting, it gives us the opportunity to work together. It doesn't just go to the agent who, you know, has knowledge and qualifications, yes, but work in a resource area would come to us in an application and we would work collectively in the meeting, at the hearing, with the people proposing it, with the agent and with all the commission members with their eyes on it. And that usually leads to good results. It leads to the best protection. And that's what we're here for.
Okay. Carol and then Michael.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm wondering about is, I think it makes sense that when we're talking about bridges, and the ones we've seen have sometimes been really permanent structures, right? They've had pilings, they've been in sensitive areas, right across, you know, streams. And sometimes they're very long as well. Seth, some of the examples you showed were ones that in other places, like at an Audubon sanctuary I saw down on the south coast of Massachusetts, and even here in our town, that the bridges, so-called bridges, could actually be temporary structures. And I can show you for a couple photos that I've taken. Just real quick, it will only take a second.
Thank you.
So this is an example that I saw down on the Cape. And the other one is right here in Sherborn, over in the Ivy Lane neighborhood, in the conservation area there. I'm bringing this up to say, possibly one of the ways also to get so many of the examples that were shown to us were ones where these are kind of wetlands that are wet in the spring. People throw stuff down to walk over it. It dries up, but it's being damaged. And maybe one thing we could think about is whether temporary bridges or wooden steps of this kind could be done under a more lightweight process, or if they're temporary, for instance, this one on the right is a kind of a temporary bridge. I saw ones at the Audubon that were actually made of like almost like rubber mats, but that's more expensive. That those could be treated separately with less process, because there's far less disturbance.
Okay. Michael, did you have something you wanted to add?
I guess we're gonna have to continue. 9:30, we have the RDA, but so I feel almost like we should continue the discussion after the railroad stuff, because I think he's here. But so I feel a little rushed. I don't want to force all of them into RDAs, because you have to have them posted with hearings, posted in the newspaper and whatnot. I would rather start, I mean, I don't mind having it a separate section, whether it's 14A or something, that, but that is still, we could start with a notice to perform work and for some stuff, and then see from that whether we want them to go to an RDA or something else. That I would rather have the first level of the process to be quite modest, akin to 14 with, I don't know whether I can't even find in the order how far in advance you need to have a notice to perform work. In
1
place.
month.
1 month.
Okay.
Okay.
So I don't mind having, I mean, I could come back. I have more comment, but
So
don't know.
here's what I'd propose, because it's late and I don't think we're in a great rush here. I think the concept of lowering the barrier, as it were, as kind of Seth has originally kind of framed it, I think is it sounds like there's at least some traction on such a way to do it. I personally would like to go back and look at the RDA and see whether I thought that was an appropriate sort of lowering, or maybe whether there's some advantage to going further, like Michael is saying. But I think it bears further discussion. I think it's a good, fruitful discussion to have. So I would just propose that we put it on another agenda and talk about it, because it's 9:30. We got a RDA, and then at 10 o'clock we got a COC, and then we've got lots of discussion items here. So I think it makes more sense for us to push it into another meeting, as long as SFTA doesn't mind coming back to discuss it again.
Yeah, that's great with me. So far, the discussion is really positive, and yeah, and I agree. There's not a big rush. This is something we want to establish for long-term improvements.
Okay. All right. Well, does it make sense? Do we have? It sounds like the next agenda is pretty packed. Do you want to do it on the one after that? July.
I think they're all
15th? Not yet. We'll get you a ground floor apartment on July 15th.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, what kind of time do we have for them at that point?
On July 15th, we have 7:30. On July 1st, we have 10:30.
No, we're not doing 10:30.
No. We'll do. So how does July 15th at 7:30 sound?
Real good.
Good. All right. We'll put you on for then.
Brain function.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Let's do that.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Seth.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night. All right. We've got RDA for Mass Coastal Railroad Vegetation Management.
Who's here for that?
Hello, I'm Tom Lewis. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
Tom.
Hi. Thanks. So as you may recall, since we last discussed, we did our field review this week, Joyce and I, and we went through the mapping. We actually discovered and added a couple of no spray areas that we hadn't seen before. I did revise the maps, although I just recently sent them within the last hour to Joyce and Elizabeth. So you probably have not had a chance to look at them, although I can share them on my screen. There were just 2 additions of no spray areas around the area of Peckham Hill Road. And outside of that, I guess I could let Joyce talk about what she saw on the site visit if she wants to.
I'd like to see the maps shared, please.
Okay, I can share.
All right. While Tom's doing that, Joyce, do you want to give us some feedback?
Sure. So we traveled the train tracks from the town of Medfield to Framingham, and they've very clearly added markers on the ties. It is a little disconcerting because all they have to be is 10 feet from a resource area. So, but it's all clearly marked. We also noted the zone 2 markings that where the spraying is timed. And so it matched. We added, Tom had added one before we even got to the property, and then we added another when I was out there, and they were both in the area of, as he pointed out, mile marker 19, and I saw them on the plan. So it was quite an experience, and it seemed to be, marked properly. So what I'm approving out there we're not approving a wetland delineation. We're approving basically it's a spray delineation. That the plates are in the appropriate places.
Okay. Does anybody have questions?
Joyce, was it fun?
Yeah, it was good. It was tough for a short person, but it was good getting in and out of the vehicle.
Michael, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'll speak just to my area which is I have about 3/4 of, about a half a mile from, I saw those little markers there. Yes, I found it quite disconcerting when I took a walk today to see that the marker where it crosses Sewell Brook is the 10 feet before and after. And I'm like saying, to what extent are they, where are they, that they're spraying? There's wetlands on both sides of the railroad track. And all of a sudden, oops, there's this one thing here just where that happens to cross Sewell Brook. And so and when I looked at the map, it has a no spray area on some sides, but I can't figure out why it wouldn't be on the other side.
So,
Along that stretch before you get to Forest Street.
so I agree. I had that same thought, but what was pointed out to me is that this used to be a double track, and their booms run 10 feet from the center of the tracks. So on the east side, where it says no spray on the west side, on the east side, their booms don't get within 10 feet of the wetlands on that side. And that's why it says typically on one side or the other. So again, you're right. You would never, when you're walking it, you think, oh my gosh, the whole thing should be marked. But then when you get out and you measure it, if it's 10 feet from the edge of the resource area, it can be sprayed. And Tom can describe it better because the truck that I was on, you could see where the boom would rest on the back of the truck. And then they have the booms on the front that also drop down. So it's controlled and measured.
It's going within the gravel area of the bed.
So basically it's just in the ballast area that they're spraying.
Ballast. Yeah, no, I guess, right.
It's very surprising when you see it.
Yeah, no, I think I've seen that, and I know about the way the two sides of the tracks are and how the line goes. But yeah, right, it's a little bit further. I guess if you're basically regulatorily, we can't stop them from doing it within 10 feet. It's only 10 feet of a resource area. Is that the regulatory?
Right.
Bound? And nothing more than that.
Right.
Yes, it's just disconcerting to see so many wetlands that you're spraying much of. Okay.
If I could just add in there, I understand it is close. And two things on that. Any application that's in a sensitive area, whether it's a buffer zone or say a zone 2 wellhead recharge area, they have to use sensitive area materials, which are intended to be used specifically in close proximity to resource areas because they've shown that they don't migrate. And the other thing is that they're able to, because they're on the tracks, this is not an off-track piece of equipment. This piece of equipment is mounted on the tracks, so they can't steer. They're fixed to the tracks. They can't go left or right. That line on the edge of that spray pattern is very well defined. And so it's not as if that line kind of wanders. They have very good control as to how they apply that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess it's only a matter of, right, I don't have any rights in terms of how much less you can spray there, but yes, my well is, yeah, probably 150 feet away from where you'll be spraying. So for example, but I gather even the rules say that that's not a defining parameter.
Yeah, a well within 100 feet would have restrictions.
Right.
If it's closer than 100 feet.
Right. No, just being beyond the cusp of that is a little.
Okay.
So
okay. Are there any other questions? Okay. I move we approve this with a -5.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, aye. Courtney?
Aye.
Michael?
I guess aye.
Cindy?
If you're sad about it.
Cindy?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, right. Actually,
No, I understand, and I'm thinking to myself, there's not a darn thing.
no,
that-
I walked it there and I could see what they
Yeah.
did, but I guess hopefully we can get the updated maps and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, we've got some time before our COC at 10 o'clock. So what else we got? Can we do minutes now?
Why don't we, can we please do 18 Old Orchard discussion? Because then maybe after that, well, no, I guess, never mind. I was gonna say, after that, maybe Joyce could go home, but
Oh, yeah. Look, I'm
Oh,
happy to let Joyce loose.
actually, we need her here for the COC as well.
Whatever you
Let's
want.
do everything. Let's do
Um,
everything. Sorry, go ahead, Joyce.
So we were contacted by 18 Old Orchard. This was a notice of intent for a septic system that was installed at 18 Old Orchard. I was not familiar with it. I went out to view the property because it changed hands, and the current owner's only familiarity with the fact that there was an order of conditions was that the homeowner had explained things to him, basically saying that he should seed his lawn. And Alarid had sent out a letter in the fall to him because he had some questions regarding what type of seed should be used. And she had spoken that it should be, and I read the order, and it talks about stabilizing areas with a conservation seed mix and not lawn. And I guess I'm bringing this up for two reasons. One is he is thinking that you said that over the septic system can't be lawn, but when I read it more and looked at the design plans, I'm fairly certain that what was referred to as being stabilized with conservation seed mix was a mitigation area below where the septic system is. If I could share my screen, I'll see if anybody can remember this. If you can, it's a poor plan, but this is Old Orchard, 18 Old Orchard. The house is here. The septic system was placed in the area of the existing septic system. There was a boulder wall placed in this area here, and there's a square footage amount that sits down. There's another retaining wall here that was, I think, existed prior to this work. And it seemed to me that the area that was referred to as mitigation was down below this wall. And I don't know if any of you all can recall this in the Wayback Machine here. Because what he was thinking that when Alarie sent out the letter was that this area over the septic system should be conservation seed mix. And that's when I went out and walked the property, this area right here over the septic system, which is clearly bordered by a stone wall, I can show you some pictures of it in just a moment, is actually the only area of lawn on the whole project. And when I was out there and thinking that first that this was the area that you all wanted to have with conservation seed mix, it didn't make sense because again, that was the only area that he had available to him as lawn. And when I went out and walked these wetland flags out in this area here, it's a very generous wetland line. It's not an aggressive wetland line. I would say soils when I brought this area out here because I was finding hay-scented fern and sassafras. There was a bunch of shrubs and trees that was on this side that were upland. So legitimately, this line is probably 15 feet in this area here, and the wall was probably 70 feet from the. This is hard to see, but 70 feet from the septic system, and instead of the 50 feet that's being shown. So I guess I'm trying to get some feedback from everybody to think. I think this was the area that was, I'm speculating, that was to be restored with conservation seed mix, and it has kind of grown back into a wild meadow area. and this is lawn. And I'm gonna close this and bring up the pictures.
Isn't it's aren't you supposed to have grass growing over a septic?
It needs to be stabilized, exactly. But
Right.
it needs to be stabilized, so it could be a meadow mix. So
Okay.
so this is I'm standing now with my back to the wetlands.
Yeah.
This is the boulder wall that runs around, and this is that lawn area here. You know, and so this is the only, this is the driveway up here, and there's no lawn above it. I don't have, again, now I'm standing on the backside and looking. So this area down here is what's all kind of grown back native-ish. And I think that was the area that was supposed to be designated as mitigation. I just wanted to confirm that with you all. This is again the lawn. I'm just looking across the lawn now. I don't have good pictures down below.
I don't remember.
So I don't believe the intent would have been to change what was over the septic system. Just listening to all the septic systems that you all have talked about, that you would have said they needed to put a meadow mix over the only lawn on the property over the septic system. And if that's what other people recall, I think that this site has been stabilized. The other picture I had in here, one of the other conditions was that stone be placed. This is they needed to be stone. This is where the drains come from the roof, and they did put stone. It's all covered with leaves right now, but there is stone from the outfall to the from the roof drains, and that was put in.
Joyce, I have a quick question. Do you, because I do not remember this property at all, and typically I do remember properties, and I looked up the name on it, and I don't even remember people's name from it. So do you know what the date was on this, just out of curiosity?
Elizabeth had put it in the...
It's March 11th, 2019.
If it helps, this was Thomas Rue's project, if you remember him.
What was the name?
Thomas Rue. He didn't typically do work in town. It was a family friend. They were from the Cape, if that helps.
And the area between the stone and the house where the septic is was previously lawn, yes?
Yeah, it was the previous septic system.
We would not have told them to it would have been return it to lawn, and I imagine that open part we would have said with conservation mix.
Yeah, I mean, the order of conditions calls it the restoration area and slopes, and so it seems pretty clear to me that that lower area was to be seeded that way.
The plan just wasn't really clear, and that's why
Right.
he was given the impression from, and again, I don't think he understood what was being talked about, but he was given the impression that the lawn needed to come up and be changed, and that's why I went out and walked the site. So I just want to get an understanding.
So okay.
It refers to the areas dominated by grass consistent with the adjacent lawn. So that seems to confirm what you're thinking, is that it's the area adjacent to the lawn that it's referring to, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's supposed to have some rocks because they're saying the lawn should not encroach further into the buffer zone.
It's clearly bordered by rocks all around.
Okay. So the only question now is if they're going forward, are they going to be looking for a certificate of compliance?
Yes, they will be.
And so the issue is whether the lower area, if not planted with New England Conservation Wildlife seed mix, whether it's native and natural enough as is, so that we're not going to require that part of it, is the question.
It looked to me, as I said, to be a wild meadow when I was walking it, and I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on the fact that somebody thought the lawn needed to be removed. But now that I thought about it some more. It didn't make sense. So I will look at that, but that lower area again. But from what I recall looking at it, there were fern and it looked very natural. It was not maintained.
Do you have a sense of how, are they mowing it?
No, they're not mowing it.
No?
No.
Did you notice in the mitigation that it says the limit of work or lawn shall be permanently demarcated with the installation of boulders? So that does.
I did, and those pictures show that the boulders wrap around the whole lawn, the whole back of the lawn.
So that does show in the order of conditions that it says upgrade of the mitigation area. So again, that confirms that that's
okay. Good.
Mitigation area is the area that you thought it was, Joyce.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing this to us and clarifying it.
I will speak with the owner and I will make one more site visit and suggest they close it out.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did we lose
Okay.
Neil?
No? Okay. What do we want to do? Minutes?
Sure.
Did minutes show up?
Yep. Hey, Michael, I have a bunch of names for you to add in on under guests. And also you need to take out Jessica Jackson under commissioners present in the top. It's the second row down.
How many names are they? More than 3?
Yes.
More than 6?
No.
Okay, fine.
4. Sean Colleen.
He's in there already.
Oh, okay. I
Next.
for some reason didn't see that. So there's only 3. Dan McIntyre. Thanks, Courtney, for catching that.
No worries.
Art Allen. And John Olivieri. I don't know if I'm saying that right, so I'll spell it Oliveira.
Okay, next. Edits.
So this is not necessarily an edit that I think we can fix unless we still have the recording. So I was attending my open meeting law training and they had some interesting information about, the virtual meeting format. And, we obviously have to do the roll call vote. But apparently that needs to be recorded in the minutes.
The roll call vote does?
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't remember when I saw it. I didn't think we had to put the actual names.
No, they said it has to be like same as executive session. If you have a roll call vote, you have to write the roll call.
You have to actually put each person's name.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not doing that now. Elizabeth?
I don't know that we can fix it in these minutes if we don't have that information, but.
Well, we have it by definition because we have all the people who were there. When it's a 6-0 vote, we have 6 people that were there.
True. Did we have anything scandalous that meeting?
I think we should, I guess we can do it going forward.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, I had one thing to add. It was under the 48-hour rule. It was a request from the Boy Scouts to camp at Peters Hill that we added that. Well, at least that's what my notes said. I don't know if other people have something different.
Take good notes.
Was it Peters Hill or Barber?
Well, it just was request to camp from Boy Scouts And then later in the notes, it said something about Peters Hill.
It was Peters Hill because we were also joking about how maybe they would clean it up a little bit, which they
But initially at this point in time of the meeting, it just was request to camp from Boy Scouts. That was it.
And did we voted to approve the agenda then if we amended it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I have some notes saying we alerted the fire department that they were.
That comes later on.
there.
Next.
Yep. So down at the bottom where Kelly McClintock gave an overview of the spring management plan and proposed use of the remainder, I think that should be rather than reminder. So an A in there.
Oops, I guess I didn't need all that. Next.
I had under the notice of intent for 7 Coursebrook, I think Marianne DePinto, I think when she spells her name, it's with a capital P. So capital D, lowercase I, capital P. I don't know if anyone else. This is under,
It's not, it's just checking above. That's what we have.
oh, was she there? Yeah.
She better be above.
I think I checked that.
Whoops, what do we got here? Oh. Next.
And then the other thing that I had in my notes, the agent, this is also under 7 Coursebrook. The agent suggested that mitigation for the 14 trees being removed involve invasive control. I said, and this is the part I added because it was in my notes, and planting 12 shrubs along the 50-foot at the back of the septic field. Along the 50-foot at the back of the septic field. Or I guess if you want me to do that.
Michael, when you get a chance, I did notice a typo in the section on the first page about artificial turf, but I don't want to interrupt you.
So I have a question for everybody at the end of this notice of intent for 7 Coursebrook. It says a motion was made and seconded to allow Joyce to issue the permit.
Hold on, before we do that, what's the artificial turf typo since I scrolled up there? Carol?
Yep, hang on. It is where it says attendees comment. Make it clear that this is a vote against the installation of artificial turf.
Say again, make clear that.
This is a vote. Did you catch that
No.
already? I saw it in your earlier ones.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what this thing was at the end here, this extra motion here. What, was that what you're saying, Jean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we ever voted to ask Joyce.
It says the motion was withdrawn.
Right, I think this is just capturing the detail that went on. So I think somebody had made a motion to allow Joyce to come up, you know, to issue the permit, and then that was withdrawn. And I think, you know,
Okay.
as I read that, it seems to me that that's what that's capturing. It's capturing the back and forth.
That's the way you remember it, then that's fine with me.
If you remember it that way, we'll
Oh,
leave it
let me
otherwise.
check my notes again. I checked it once.
Okay, moving on. Next comments while she's looking.
Oh, well, before you go too far, now I'm looking here and I'm looking there. Okay. The Sewell Brook unauthorized bike trails. In my notes, I had the commission discussed a letter to the Deerfield Drive neighborhood. Maybe that changed and maybe we're not even doing that, but we did discuss it.
The deer for,
So going back to that thing about, do you want clarification on 7 Coursebrook? Does anyone care about having clarification on 7 Coursebrook?
only unless we're going to change anything. Unless,
Well, I don't have anything about issuing a permit. I have that Joyce was going to draft an order of conditions in my notes. I have that we close the hearing and approve the project, but I'm not showing anything about issuing a permit. That doesn't mean we didn't discuss it, but I don't remember and I don't have that.
it's not consequential. We can drop it.
Okay, sounds good to me. Under the new residence letter, I think you have to scroll back up. Maybe.
Yes.
Yep, it should be the last line. The commission will investigate, should be a commissioner will. You know, should we get on to the next thing and stop this now? Because it's 10:05.
How much is left?
I don't know. All right.
Not much left.
All right, so under tree cutting, message for town website, we also discussed, or it was also mentioned
Tree cutting.
about, yeah, tree cutting message for town website. It was also suggested or mentioned, or somebody volunteered to do it, creating a post about the same on Nextdoor. I don't know if it was done. I'm just, this is.
None of this was done.
Mentioned. Well, it was mentioned anyway.
No agent. Well, but we have excellent interim agent though.
And then the only other thing I have on that page, Michael, is I think that substantiality under the 40B projects, it's the second to last line. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's the 4th line. Proposed wastewater treatment location. Should that be water sustainability?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yes.
Okay, just the spelling of it is.
How much more do we have to do overall?
I just have one more thing. It's on the 4th page and it's just removing, because it's a repeat, removing enforcement compliance policy and enforcement approach, because it says this was not discussed. That actually, that occurred on some other page. Where is it? I saw it earlier. Oh, maybe it's gone. I don't know. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, it occurred on page 3 after tree cutting.
Oh.
So it's repeated. So we just have to remove it from one or the other.
I move that we accept minutes as edited.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Jean?
Aye.
Neil, aye. Carol?
Aye.
Courtney?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
All right, the motion carries. All right, sorry, let's get to the COC for 52 hunting.
I went out and walked that property and it looked at the comments that Allery had made after her last inspection, and the property looked great. There were trees planted, everything is stabilized, and it based on what the planting plan had called for, all of the mitigation plantings were in also and growing. So I recommend that you issue a certificate of compliance.
That's good to hear.
In order for that, do we just are we just voting straight out? It's not part of it's just a straight vote. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I move we that we issue the certificate of compliance for 52 Hunting Lane.
Second.
Any other discussion? Jean,
Aye.
Neil, I, Courtney,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, is that all we need Joyce for, Jean?
I think so, Joyce. Is that right?
That's it. The only outstanding thing I have is I have one emergency order I'm holding off on. There's a dangerous tree on Elliott Street. They have a big giant willow, the top of which has broken off and the rest of it's leaning towards the house. I'm only holding off because it's only for 30 days and the tree cutter might be outside of that, just outside of that. So as soon as she's got a date, I will issue that emergency order for the tree. That's the only other thing I've got going on.
Okay,
That sounds good.
all right.
You all have a lovely evening.
You too. Thank you again for all your help.
Yes, many thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's move with some speed here if we can. Coolidge Crossing update. Do we have anything new there?
Do we?
The meeting on June 28th, is that the one for Coolidge Crossing?
I
Is that
think they were meeting tonight, right?
Yeah, I think they might be.
Yeah.
Can't remember what we, I can't,
Neither.
between the two projects and everything else, I'm trying to remember what Coolidge Crossing is all about.
It's on Coolidge Street.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to figure out which conditions we cared about. Oh, yeah, I sent them in. I guess they're finalizing it, but they hadn't had the fill and the stumps, so I resubmitted those. Whatever things we had resubmitted that they might have missed, I think I resubmitted the issues about fertilizer and de-icing and chemicals. I ended up having to send it all back to them again because it's not really, there's no public participation. It's just a matter of, you have to email them if you see that they've been failing to include things. So I think I ended up resubmitting.
Is this the ZBA that you're resubmitting to, or
Yeah.
is that who you mean?
Yeah, I just sent in the same stuff because you can't have anything new. So I just said, see the stuff from before. So I did, yeah. So now that it's coming back to me, there were a few things. And there are a number of other things that we wanted that were already on the new plans, such as the lighting. And they had the thing about dimmers for the animals and on the lighting. So whatever. So I resubmitted everything. Hopefully it'll get in there, or if not, we'll see it again with the NOI that's probably coming quite soon and we should plan for. Is a whole other issue that how we're going to handle that.
Can we reach out to them and tell them that they better get in line for the second meeting in July?
I don't know if it's time for, right, I don't know. Are you telling me
Well, well, what's the, I mean, they're going to reach out to us when they're ready and we're going to tell them when we can schedule them, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it'd be nice to have a general sense of when they're going to do it, only because if we're going to reach out to an outside consultant, it'd be nice to get an understanding of the timing of it.
Yeah, the other thing is, but for our agent side, given where we are now, is this the kind of thing where do we want to go approach Karen and see whether she would be our agent on this particular project? And
Why Karen and not Joyce?
Or ask if you want, if Joyce is willing, fine. I just want to make sure we have somebody lined up. I thought we were, but I think we should just have somebody lined up who's going to be our agent on this. I'd be thrilled if Joyce would be willing to do it with the support of the consultant, but I just want to make sure that she's willing to take that on and that we have somebody lined up for it. That we have, but that we do that we set that up now.
Okay, I'll ask her tomorrow.
And I guess I can't tell if our bids are, how long their time period is.
Right.
And
I was going to inquire about that, but I was just waiting until we got a little closer.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Did we ever send bids? Did we ever send the bids to them in the end?
To who?
To the applicant. Remember last time we were picking the BCS, but they also wanted to see the bids.
It's BSC.
Yes,
And,
sorry.
the bids. You mean, yes, we did. I'm pretty sure they saw them all.
Okay, because they didn't see them when we were discussing it. We were going to send them afterwards, but okay, as long as they got them.
Anything else on that one?
Nope.
What about 4131?
They're on the path to denying the project based on two factors: water sustainability and access. And I didn't hear the issue of whether, if for some reason they're turned down or overturned, whether they then still got the right conditions. But at this point, there's really nothing, all our issues about how you worrying about the hydraulic drilling or how you do the water testing and the impacts on wetlands and whatever is now seems to be put off, or it's moot until they just file this thing here for denying it. And I guess if it's overturned, I assume then we come back to conditioning stuff. And
Well, I would actually, I think it's quite possible that if they deny it, they're going to appeal to HAC. If HAC overrules them, we should probably be ready for the possibility that none of the things we suggested will get in the order, and we're going to have to tackle it as part of an NOI.
I would like to think that it comes back to them because they're not dealing with anybody else's issues besides not just ours. So all the conditions that any other people wanted about things are not being
right.
addressed.
I remember Whitney Farm, didn't that come, HAC overturned them, and then they allowed for more houses and they kind of overruled some of the original conditions.
Yeah, I missed the beginning of the meeting and didn't get a chance to ask that question of whether they should be doing it, but they're doing it that way. But I haven't heard also the bid issue should start. The second appraisal should have come in on Tuesday. And so the process for getting a third appraisal to decide the ownership control, that was an issue they tabled that they're not using for the denial is control of the property. But I guess this process should be starting now of getting a third appraisal. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Okay. Anything else on that? All right. Do you want to let's just bang down the list. Litter pickup, what's that?
I don't know. Anybody?
Oh, it's Carol's item. She had asked me to put it on the agenda a while back.
Oh, okay. Carol?
I think we should take that off the agenda. 'Cause I don't even at this point remember what it was about.
Excellent.
It's been a while.
After 10 o'clock, these sorts of things tend to fall away.
Yes, it had to do with those large letters at the split, which were an excellent idea. So I think that worked itself out.
Okay. Townwide mosquito spraying?
Sure, that's mine. So let's see, at the last meeting, I'm just reading off my notes here. At the last meeting, I brought up about opting out of the townwide spraying for mosquitoes. That is conducted by the State Reclamation and Mosquito Board. And, of course, we view it as there are numerous reasons not to broadcast spray. Some of you guys suggested that I follow up with Diane Moores about whether or not the select board has voted on this yet. I did follow up with her. This topic has not been recently on the select board agenda. And actually Diane has never even heard of the select board voting on this issue. So Diane referred me to the Board of Health. So I did talk to Ellen Hartnett. Am I getting her last name right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And she said that she said she would never recommend opting out, but she also informed me that when the State Reclamation and Mosquito Board comes through and sprays, that a resident on any street that they're spraying that day has to have asked for the spraying. So it's not that they go through and broadcast spray the whole street, which is what I used to experience. Apparently now this is what she was telling me. Apparently now, like say they were coming through my street, you know, a neighbor would have had, like, say, number 10 Dexter would have had to ask to be sprayed in order to receive that spray. And like for my situation, I have no spray. I filled out the form online and I've posted my property with no spray. So that's how she's telling me it works. And to opt out of that, she said, is very, like, they make it difficult to do. Not that you can't do it, but they make it difficult. But at this point, I am suggesting, because the deadline to opt out was May 28th, and I know you guys wanted me to just look into it because you thought maybe we could like do something later. I'm not going to even go down that path because I think it's a waste of time at this point. So because the deadline has passed. So I'm going to suggest that if we, the commission, want to opt out of spraying our properties that we manage, because we could opt out of spraying the properties that we manage, say out near Hope Still and the Barber and that kind of thing, we could vote on that and opt out of that spraying. And I know Jean had said that we would submit like a list. I'll have to look into this. I don't know if we just submit a list or if things have changed such that you do it online. Because that's, I mean, I did my own property online. So I don't, like, for doing the properties that we manage as the Conservation Commission, I might not have to just submit a list in, you know, like a handwritten or typed up list, but I could maybe actually do it online like I did my own property. That's what I have to look into. But I wanted to put it forth to you guys to see, do you want to opt out of spraying our conservation managed properties?
I thought we had agreed to that the last time this was discussed.
Did we vote on it and agree to it?
I don't know if we voted on it.
I don't know if we
You guys
voted on
sent
it.
me off to go investigate this stuff, so I didn't think we agreed to anything.
I don't think we did. I don't remember that.
I don't think we voted, but I know we discussed it.
Yeah, but we,
Cindy, I also talked to mosquito control for you, and we need to send them a GIS layer, which we don't have, or a map and lot number, which I got of all of our parcels from the Board of Assessors, and I can forward that along to you with the guy's contact information if you want to.
okay, so it is something like where I just type out like a list and send it to them then.
Yes, with the map and lot number.
Okay, map and lot
Wow.
number. Okay.
So
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's
Thank
very
you. Yeah, that's great, Elizabeth. Yeah.
So do we all agree that we don't want our property sprayed?
Yeah, I move that we opt out of mosquito spraying for conservation land.
Second.
Jinx. Any other discussion?
One thing I just wanted to mention, because I did, as I was taking notes and finding stuff out, I just thought you guys might find this interesting. The following towns have opted out of broadcast mosquito spraying by the State Reclamation and Mosquito Control Board for this year, 2021. Montague, Windle, Ashby, Gloucester, Uxbridge, Pepperell, Harvard, and those that were working on the process, this is as of 5/14, which is quite a while ago now, the following towns were working on the process of opting out: Buckland, Whately, Lincoln, Northfield, Shelburne, New Salem, West Hampton, and Williamsburg. So just FYI, interesting.
Yep.
So,
Very.
oh, never mind. Carol has her hand up.
I've been
Carol?
here for a little while. Couple things. I just wanted to let you know, based on Cindy, what you heard from Board of Health. My husband and I just happened to be walking, and we talked to a guy who was dropping larvicide into the drains on the Orchard, Old Orchard neighborhood. And so we basically said, what are you doing? Because we didn't, we see this guy from mosquito control, and he told me, I put it in an email. He told me that that's the kind of pesticide, it was a larvicide. He said very specifically that when they spray, they skip people who are in the online registry. He did not say what Ellen from Board of Health said. He basically said, yeah, we just go ahead and spray, but if a property has registered online, then we skip that property. So I just wanted to let you know because he's on the ground. I mean,
No,
he's,
so thank you, because that is actually what you just reported is actually my experience, is that they go through and spray with their truck. They're spraying from a truck.
Yep.
And they're spraying the whole street. That is my experience. I didn't have that experience of what, I mean, that is my experience. What you just reported is my experience.
Right. And I mean, he's employed by the state. I mean, he was actively doing this. So I think that's probably more likely, but either that or they haven't caught up with whatever is the latest policy.
Well, that's what I was going to suggest, because when I was the agent, what was happening was what Ellen told you, that you had to request to have them come and spray. But maybe it's possible that they've changed their approach and Ellen hasn't caught up with it. The other thing is, if he was dropping larvicide in the drains, it sounds to me like the Board of Selectmen or somebody told Mass Mosquito Control to go ahead and do the town. Because
so you're automatically set up. From what Ellen was telling me, you're automatically set up. Like you have to actively opt out. It's not like you tell them you want to opt in. You have to actively opt out. Your town has to vote to opt out. And then you have to come up with a plan and a management system for the mosquitoes that you have to submit to the state.
The one thing I would say about that is that after I saw the what he was doing, I checked up the larvicide, and I looked at the Mass Audubon recommendation, and they are saying that the lowest impact approach is using a larvicide. So I think it is a good idea for us to review this and make a recommendation to select board, especially considering that one of the concerns that was reported in the Globe is that they're now finding there's PFAS in the aerial spraying. I don't know what's in the spraying by trucks. And I think that's one of the reasons that towns are opting out. They're concerned not just about this repetitive spraying and the impact it has, but that now they're finding that there's actually PFAS in the spray.
So can I just jump in and say that when the governor declares I'm going to probably not use the right term, but it's like a state of emergency, and they do aerial spraying, no one gets to opt out of that.
I see.
Yeah. So the broadcast spraying from the truck as it goes down the street, you can opt out of that. But once, this was maybe 2-3 years ago now, the governor called a state of emergency because there was triple E found or something. And remember they stopped all the sports. There were no sports in the evening or, like anything going on at school outside. They had stopped all that. And there was aerial spraying at night and no one at all could opt out of that.
Right. Okay. So let's do this. There is a motion so we're in the discussion phase. Let's finish this off, and we can kind of revisit some of these other topics if we want. So is there any other discussion on opting conservation land out of mosquito spraying? Okay, let's vote. Jean?
Aye.
Neil, aye. Courtney?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Cindy?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
Okay. Maybe what's that?
I'm just going to quickly, to try to wrap it up a little. I mean, Cindy, if you're going to pursue it and we have all this different information, is whether to actually call up Lincoln, for example, if they're in the process of doing it, and just get it from somebody get some on the ground info from another town. Because I know part of the issue is that some people, like what Ellen said, some people can call up the mosquito control and get individual spraying. And that's the kind of thing that we'll run into if we try to get the whole town to do it, is that there are a number of people who do it. Some of it do it because they also have channels of water that mosquito control will come in and actually clear a little to make sure it flows versus it's stagnant. So there is a whole other route or process by which people do call in, but still the idea of whether we could opt out or only allow them putting the stuff in the septic, in the larvicide in, and only do some of that and let people call in if they want. Maybe there's a whole hybrid of option, a hybrid that we could create.
Right. So what are you exactly suggesting right now? That you want me to follow up with Lincoln and see what they're doing?
I mean, I'm just saying, to get more evidence, since we're getting some mixed advice about it, to see what Lincoln, to get examples from another town and see what they're actually, experiencing if you have the time.
Right, that would be for next year though, because right
Exactly.
now.
That's what I'm saying. We're starting now and
Got it,
look at a
okay.
hybrid and look at a
I
hybrid.
just want to make sure that we were on the same page on that, that's all.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not talking, we're looking forward.
Yeah, so I will work with Elizabeth to put that, the map and the lot number together, and then I have to post that, so I don't know, Jean, I know you said you've done that in the past, and I don't know if there's a certain, I mean, I know I have to use pie plates, but I don't know if that's what you used in the past, or if you use something else, or if you ever, and I can talk offline to you about this if you want.
Okay,
Okay,
let's do that offline.
great, thank you.
Thank you. Next, oh, Neil's gone.
What do we got here?
Well, I think he was going to give the agent position update. So I can instead talk about the board and commission reappointment process. So I attended the select board's meeting at which this was discussed, as did Michael. And they're changing the policy. They're working on it actively. The personnel board is writing a new draft. It's actually fleshing out the old draft. The intent of the rework was, I think, a good one. They, you know, the way it's been going for the last few years has been that the process of people knowing that there are vacancies and the selectmen finally appointing people to those vacancies has taken a long time, a few months. And so the purpose of the redraft is to condense it down to a specific timeline and having the whole thing done more efficiently and having it over by June 15th. So, but in the process of doing this, what's also happening is that they're really putting the task of who to appoint more with the select board. So what I gather is, for us right now, we have Courtney, Michael, and Cindy, who are up for reappointment, who have all said they want to be reappointed. First, I have to ask, have all three of you submitted your applications?
Yep.
Okay, what I gather from this discussion that what's coming up is that they're going to not just want the application, but they also will want either a resume or a biography with the application attached. So I asked, did they want this from our members now? And it was a confusing answer, but it sounds to me like the best thing I could suggest to the three of you is to, I don't know if you have to resubmit your application or ask Diane to attach a biography or a resume to the application. And what I think is going to happen is, or has already happened, is that someone has advertised all the vacancies on all the boards and committees right now on social media, I think on Nextdoor. I don't use Nextdoor, so I don't know.
That was advertised a while ago. I saw it go up.
A while meaning what?
A month ago.
Okay, well.
Somebody put it up saying, if you want to, stop complaining, if you want to get involved, here's all the open slots.
In any event, I believe it was a little difficult to get this clarified, but I believe the select board will be finished accepting all applications and be discussing who to appoint at their next meeting, which is July 1st, which is when we have our next meeting as well. They did also say that the process has fallen through the cracks. What should have been happening over the years was that when there were two people applying for one position, there should have been an interview with those people at a select board meeting, and that's going to be absolutely happening from now on. So if other people apply for your upcoming vacancies between now and July 1st, we should be keeping track of what's on the select board's agenda. It's very possible that you should be available to be interviewed at that meeting.
I have a
Michael,
comment. when you're
Michael, if you've heard anything differently or I misrepresented any of that, please let me know.
I wasn't sure how you said it to everybody, but right, I submitted, when I first did mine, I put in a resume. So as I think I've told others or Cindy or whatever, that you should just edit or resubmit your application with a resume.
So
or bio or any sort of biography or a
when you
link.
say when you first did it, Michael, do you mean when you very first initially applied to the board?
No, I did when
Or do you mean this last time?
I already submitted a resume. Let's just put it that way. I
Well,
did it.
but this is what I'm asking. When you say you already submitted it, you mean way back when, or do you mean this time?
This time.
Okay, and I just want to make a comment. This is why I feel, and I've said this before, and now this is the example that I will use. This is why I feel many people in this town are so concerned about a degree or somebody's background, or whether you have a master's, or whether you have a doctorate, or what you have. This is where I'm getting this feeling from.
Well, whatever.
I'm just saying, I want, people didn't understand why I was saying that before. This is a good example of why I say that. I'm just saying, this is why I say that.
I'm just saying that wasn't the way it was presented as the issue. Just, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but that wasn't the way the issue of supplying a resume or a biography came up more as they just wanted to know a little bit about somebody. It doesn't even have to be a resume. They just wanted to know a little bit about what
Then
you
Michael, I've already submitted that. I submitted that when I became a commissioner 3+ years ago.
Well,
so
they
let them
wanted-
go back through the records and look at what I submitted.
That's not the way they want it done. They want it done each time. The burden's on us to supply something with it. They're
So-
not in the business of going back. So I suggest you don't have, obviously you don't have to do any of this, but I'm just suggesting that you should just submit something about that. They don't want to be in the business of going back and seeing whatever you did before. Each time it comes up, it's a new slate.
Well, can I make a suggestion about that? I mean, for instance, since I've joined the commission, I got certified by MACC. All of us have done all sorts of things. Those are things that could be added that demonstrate commitment and learning. So that's one thing I would suggest adding.
And I will jump in on that. And also, that is exactly what I put down on my application this time.
Yes, but Cindy, however many years ago that was, it's very likely that the board.
I just got certified. They just posted me.
It's very likely that there are changes on the Board of Selectmen. We know there's a change that's about to happen on the Board of Selectmen. So I think maybe it's redundant in your mind, but there are new people taking a look at your application.
Here's what, look, hold on. Can I just say something?
Yeah.
They're changing the process. I think it's cumbersome. I think at times it can be used as an excuse to disagree with the fact that the commission is comprised of a certain type of person. And I know that, so there's been a push to do this. We've had more than one occasion where the select board has expressed concerns about various boards and committees and their makeup. This is an expression of that, and so they're asking and they're trying to change this process. I think there's things to object to about it. I think there are things that are fine if you want to put up with it, but it is what it is. And, it's personal choice, but I think that's the way it goes, is that, and it doesn't have to be a resume, it can be a bio. And, when we first did these sort of re-upping things, you sort of say why you want to do it and you provide a little bit of information. I think that in and of itself can be sufficient. And if they have 27 people volunteering to get onto the Conservation Commission and put themselves through this every 2 weeks, great, let's have that conversation. I just think it's just one of those things that they think is important, and we may or may not agree, or individuals may or may not agree. I don't think there's anything highbrow about it, frankly. I think it's just. Yeah, is what it
I
is.
just wanted to add a couple of other things. So Michael was stressing during this discussion that it ought to be written into their new policy that they encourage people who are considering applying for any board or committee to actually attend before they make that decision, attend one of the meetings. Of course, that's a very good idea. And then towards the end, Vicki Rellis, who's on the personnel board, was also suggesting that we and every other board compile some sort of a simple, doesn't have to happen right now, but soon or for next year, we have some sort of a video or presentation that gives some little portrait of what we do. And I think that's a good idea also.
Yeah, sounds great. Who's going to produce that?
Can I
Our
ask?
agent that we can't hire.
Well, the video would be you take one of these 4-hour meetings
Do we set it to music?
and just submit the recording
Did
with,
you really say a video? I don't remember that part.
yeah,
It was
yeah, show a video of us
I think a
doing
nice montage with some nice transitions would be good.
Well, no, I think people should get a copy of an order of condition.
Look, I mean, look,
And-
look, Michael, I think it's a good idea because anybody who sits through one of our meetings would think better.
Well, I mean, we're desperate when we see an unfamiliar face and we're like, who is that? Can we recruit them?
That's right.
So coming back to that issue, I mean, well, Cindy, you could decide whether you want to supplement your application or not. The process, just so you know, that some of the origins of all this redoing of the process came out of a whole other left field of, it turns out some people were running for the library trustees and you can't sit on another board. It actually came out of the fact that people were running for 2 different boards that they couldn't sit on at the same time, and they didn't realize it. And so part of the drive that got the personnel board involved came out of the fact that they weren't keeping track of who could do what. For example, on the ballot you just voted for, you could have voted for Vicki Rellis for the library trustee, but I don't think she could actually be on it because she's on the personnel board. And so it all.
Wait. She's saying that the process that she created.
No, it came out of, no, she didn't create the process. This new process is being reviewed, or the process is all being re-examined because they messed up not knowing what the rules were. And so now they want to make sure they don't get into that problem going forward. So they want people to apply and know where they sit so they can do a quick review of saying, okay, there's no catches or problems. But moving on, I wanted to suggest that.
Oh my God, your head.
Uh,
His head disappeared for a second. I'm sorry. I just.
Are you talking about Neil?
Yeah.
What I wanted to suggest is that we send a short memo to the select board, letting them know that we've appointed an associate, just to let them know that in the process of our board, the fact that it takes some effort and time to learn what it takes to do this, and to encourage people to sort of get a little more educated about us before just jumping in altogether. I think it's worth just sending a quick notice to them about the fact that we have somebody who's signed up to be an associate. I'm not sure what that means for us, whether she will participate in our meetings or whether she's willing to work with us on anything. I'm not quite sure what this associate membership is actually going to turn out to be.
This one in particular?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And since you brought her up, I asked her this evening, I did learn from her that she wasn't going to attend tonight. And it's just because, she jumped in and already had conflicts, but so I'm encouraging her to show up. And I think once she does, well, I think we'll see some work from her. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I think to
Can I make a quick comment about the video or presentation? I'm sorry, Michael, do you want to talk more about the associate? Because I actually have an idea about what
I would like to just see whether Neil agrees or people agree that we at least send a memo when we do an associate member, just to let them know that we are doing this kind of this kind of process is happening. And
I, it's very proactive. You know, I don't know if it's necessary. It's maybe they want to inquire about the status of our associate members.
Well, whether it's proactive, I mean, we don't actually have to do it. I just think we should do it. I think it would be good practice to do it. It's the board that appoints us, and we do that. I would like to think that we would do that.
Neil, are you going to weigh in?
If you,
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Sorry, it's 11:15. I'm trying to talk to my wife before she goes to bed, but I'll be back in a minute.
Okay, I want to quickly make a comment about this idea of a video or presentation of what we do.
No, we're not going to finish the other topic until Neil
Oh,
comes.
I'm sorry. It seems like we have a kind of divided opinion on that. I feel neutral about it. We could do it or not.
I feel neutral about it too. Doesn't matter to me. If you want to send a letter to the select board, and that's fine.
I think the thing that I was going to suggest, and maybe this helps us think about whether to talk about the associate, is that in this idea of a video or presentation of what we do and relating that back to the members and their qualifications, is that, you know, one thing that I've observed as a member now for like 3 years is that we have a diverse skill set, and there are people on the board who have different skills and different knowledge that are extremely useful to the functioning of the commission. You know, there are people who really understand the regulations, they focus in on that. There are people, I would say I'm one of these people who really cares about the native plants and going on site and looking. There are people who have other skills. And we have a lawyer in Jessica. So I think that one of the things that could be helpful about this presentation about what we do is outlining what we do, but then also outlining the kinds of qualifications that make a well-rounded commission. Why do I bring this up? I've been on town boards long enough to know that there have occasionally been efforts by our esteemed select board to stack a commission because they want to get something pushed through. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying if I were the select board and I was now taking a more proactive role of choosing who should be on the commission, they should be made aware of what we regard as the appropriate qualifications for a well-balanced commission. And, you know, what we would regard as, because I think there are times sometimes where it's like, well, here's somebody who's interested in the commission. Well, then you have to ask, well, are they better qualified than somebody who's already on the commission whose skills may be really, really essential and important? So I'll volunteer to write something because you guys know I like to write, and for review, because I think it is important if the process is changing to do our best to inform the select board that we're not just choosing anybody, we're choosing people who actually have qualifications.
I actually will say that I disagree with a lot of that, because in the end, the biggest thing is that somebody is interested in the general issue of wetlands protection is our primary goal. Open space is important in management, but somebody who is, I mean, it turns out we have different mix of skills, but I would say the main criterion is, well, a couple of criteria are having the time and energy to actually focus on what we do and having a strong interest in these kind of wetland protection issues. And that anybody can learn the regulations. Sure, it's wonderful that we have the plants and the whatever, and that's important. But I would say it's more important to have people who have put in the time and energy to either help us do activities or to just get invested in learning about the regulations and learning about plants. They're all skills that people can learn about to the level that we apply it. For the most part, you can learn those things. And I think I think a certain kind of availability of time and interest in the overall topic are more important than trying to pick, well, what skill are we missing? Because that gets a little strange when you're going to say, what skill are we missing? And okay, should we take a Michael or a Courtney or a Cindy based on some missing skill set. And versus the fact that it's who has the time and the interest with somebody else that, but I don't know. So I get a little hung up. I have a little trouble because everybody talks about diversity of skills and this and that. Everybody's different anyway. We're always going to have a different mix. We're never going to have a model that of skills and whatever.
That's a good point, Michael, because, you know, in all my years of exposure to conservation commissions, there have been people who joined as a member who do have underlying environmental protectionism as something that they cultivate, work on, whatever, but who, you know, it didn't last long because they didn't realize until a year went by or more how much homework there is to do, how much involvement, how much time it takes. So I think, yeah, I don't know how you ascertain. How does somebody put in writing? How do you ascertain until you actually get to know them whether or not they really care about environmental protection? That's hard.
Maybe that's one of the things we say then, that, like, you know, that is one of the most important requirements is to have that time and commitment, willingness to learn. The reality is, once you get on the commission, if you don't take the initiative to learn those things, you can't be successful. And the other thing I would say is that I completely understand what you're saying, Michael. And when I came on the commission, I didn't have the regulatory experience. I'm sure that's true of a lot of other people. I had to learn it through MACC, but I think it would be helpful. The reason I'm bringing this up is that if the select board is asking for more about people's backgrounds, even including their resumes, then they're looking at it from that perspective. And I just think it's helpful to, you know, highlight the kinds of knowledge that makes the commission capable. I completely agree that it fundamentally comes down to the willingness and the time to work at it.
Well, one of the things is to make sure that people have attended meetings to see what it is we actually do. And I think just by showing up to a few meetings, people start to get an actual feel for what's involved and the commitment, because our meetings are kind of hardcore. And also, I think emphasizing the, you know, associate process, you know, because that's a way for somebody to get involved and kind of like test drive things and see if that's really going to work for them.
No, I think, and we should make it, I mean, when I went to meetings before I joined and participated. I mean, at the time, we basically, if we had an associate here, I would treat them as the equivalent of somebody who's sitting at the table. They just don't get the vote if they want to participate and comment on things. And that's the way people can ascertain to what extent they like mucking around with the stuff we do.
I have a question for Jean and Michael, who attended the select board meeting where this was discussed. Is the select board going to make the final decision, or are they just wanting to see? I'm asking this because I worked in another town as a conservation commissioner, so I have a different perspective and I know how they ran it there. So I'm just curious, are they going to make the final decision on who sits on the conservation commission?
Definitely, that's their role.
Or are they like just blessing?
No, they make the decision, and that's the way it's always been in town.
That's always been the case.
But they've always taken the recommendations from the commission pretty seriously.
Very frequently, there's only been one person applying.
Right. I mean, I'm sorry if I missed part of the conversation, but I think in the past, there's always been the expectation that unless there was more than one person for a single role, that the recommendation of the commission would carry the day. I remember, Jean, when you were first appointed, there was, you know, somebody came and said to the select board, you know, this is the precedent, that it's the recommendation of the commission, so I'm assuming you're going to do that. And the select board said yes, and they voted, and that was the way it was. I think there has always been an element on the select board where there's been a concern over the commission being overreaching. And I think there's always been this sort of, theoretical desire to diversify the commission. But I think in reality, most of the time, it's very difficult to get people to want to do this. And so most of the time, it's not going to be controversial. I think where it could get controversial is if, I kind of heard you guys talking about a little bit, if there's somebody who's maybe not centered around conservation, maybe they have sort of different agenda and don't have the knowledge that is really required to kind of be a contributing member. I think that's another area, but I think we're going to have to go and state the case if we end up in a situation like that. So.
No, Neil, you're back. Are you willing to send a letter as a chair that we have an associate member so we show them that we have a process of people who are trying to train?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course.
We actually have 2 associates,
Kelly and
Nellie.
Thank you.
Kelly and Nellie.
And if your name does not rhyme like that, you can't be an associate.
But we could distinguish between the two. Nellie is somebody who might be interested in joining, whereas Kelly is in another role.
Interested in staying away.
That's right. It's a vested interest in not being a member of the commission.
Okay. Agent update from you, Mr. Neal.
Right. So agent update. So basically I went to the select board at their last meeting and I requested that they authorize us to hire an agent at 35 hours benefited, pending, on a temporary basis, pending approval at town meeting or whatever other mechanism we would need. Other than some kerfuffle at the beginning where it was suggested that maybe the agent's overworked because we're too burdensome, which we was sort of dispensed with quickly. I think that really came down to they'd like to see a little bit more what the actual sort of budget impact will be. David Williams said some supportive things about going to 35 hours benefited, and that really it was that it was really within his control to authorize that to happen on a temporary basis until it went to town meeting, and therefore what we really ought to be asking the select board is just simply to authorize the expenditure out of the reserve, do a reserve fund transfer. There was also some suggestion we go to advisory, but I think that's kind of, it may be more just getting their input rather than their blessing, because I'm not sure that it's their thing to bless. So, and maybe, I don't know if Courtney, you have any insight there, but so basically I think the way it got left is that we're going to do a little bit more homework, try to see how budget wise, what the impact will be, what the hours would be, and go back to them and present that case to them and ask them to authorize essentially the funding of it instead of the whole thing, and see where we are. And to be frank, while it remains to be seen if we can put together a legitimate case, I did present to them a case for why we need this now. And I don't know if I sent the presentation around to everybody. I should. I didn't. Okay, thank you, Gene. I will. It's just 9 slides that basically said we're overwhelmed and we need a full-time agent, and we're out of keeping with other towns doing the amount of work that we're doing. So, but I think generally speaking, I think they were open to the idea. And so I'm hoping that if we go back with the right justification that they'll let us do it. So I don't know, Jean, you were there. So if you want to add anything, by all means, do so.
Yeah, the conversation almost got way sidetracked into something that was not pertinent. And I'm grateful that Eric Johnson stopped that from happening. And I'm also, you already said this, that David Williams made some supportive comments. He really did. He didn't put it in like dramatic or emphatic terms. He just stated, this is what I know from talking to Neil. This is what I see as necessary. And the best thing he said was to the select board, they are here asking for your support. And I actually tried to make the case that we're drowning, but it didn't move the needle too much.
Well, I think collectively it did, because I think Paul Durensis also made the same comment, which is they are here expressing to us that they are in need of help, that it's not enough hours, they're not getting qualified candidates, and that something needs to be done and it's an urgent matter. I mean, we have been operating without a permanent agent for over 5 months, almost 6 now. And this is, what I basically said was we've got 3 people doing the job. It's averaging around 50 hours a week between Elizabeth, Jean, and Joyce, and it's just not fair, to ask people to make sacrifices, that are volunteers like Jean is, or Joyce, who's, sort of putting her business off periodically to help us. I mean, this is not what we want to be asking people to do in the long term. So I'm hoping that, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic that the initial sort of reasonably well-received response, or the initial response was pretty reasonably good. And so I'm hoping that it comes out well in the end. And so we go back on July 1st. Yeah, Jean.
Eric Johnson said he needed some more time to think about it, and he was hoping to reach out to other commission members to talk to them about it. So
if he does.
Has anybody heard from him? And if not, you might.
Yeah, if he does, just, talk to him because he wants to gather more information. Michael?
A couple of things. One is the process, if I understood it right in the end, is, right, we need to get the select board on board. No matter what David said, the select board seems to have to be on board with doing this expanded position, but the funding of it would still have to go to the advisory, and to what, because otherwise we wouldn't get, because I don't think the select board can bring forth the additional money without advisory approving a cash flow, a reserve fund transfer. So it got a little muddy at times, but I think that advisory still will have to be in the loop to approve that amount of money, whether it's 15 or 25 or whatever it turns out to be, to do it. But the select board has to vote to approve it before advisory will consider that, is my understanding of the process.
Right. I think part of what our homework before we go back to them is really to understand what that process is, because I feel like it's still undefined.
I guess I think it's fairly clear, but whatever from past experience where we had to go back get approval in the past when we've done things that wasn't quite like this, but it was always the 2 steps of you get the select board to approve it, and then you go to the advisory with the select board approval in hand. Okay. But then coming around to one other issue is whether we discuss it now, or you and I could discuss it, whether we're talking about an issue of a 35-hour position versus in the past we had a 30-hour position, and going over to what extent getting better applicants will make a difference, whether it's just a budgetary impact could be a bit less, and whether we need the full 16 hours more versus we only need 10 hours more.
Right, but I do think you have to get close to full time. Like, that's the point. That's what's going to flip the switch. 30 hours is not enough. It's like time and a half, or part-time and a half. It's not enough. And I think if we are doing 50 hours a week collectively, we're talking about Elizabeth at 19 hours and this other person at 35. That's good. I don't want to, because I think either way there's a budgetary impact. And the difference in the money is not that great, but the difference between 30 and 35 hours as an advertised position, I think, is great. Like, here's what I'll say. Let's ask for what we think is actually going to cover it instead of trying to save a few bucks. And I'm not saying you're saying that, Michael. My philosophy just generally is, let's just ask for what we need.
Right. And the work is there.
Oh,
the work is there. It's, so let's cover the work.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no, I guess I was partially going to say whether I guess maybe it is separate from this. I was just thinking of that land steward option that we were thinking about coming up with at some point, and whether we, just to keep that in mind, in the back of our mind, whether that's that going to the full-time here and everything else, that probably we'd be putting off the fund, the ask for a land steward.
Yeah,
But the-
I kind of agree. Like, I feel like the land steward position is, going to be dead in the water now for.
It's
who
just,
knows
that's
how
all-
long.
I mean, it's only, I was just reflecting on whether that,
Right.
why it would be less, but, okay. I mean, I see your point. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
concerned about the fact of what it takes to get a better applicant pool.
Yeah.
And that whether saving 3 or 5 hours and saving $5,000 or $8,000, or it's 5 to 10 was going to make a difference in the way they viewed our proposal or not.
Yeah, I think once you get into I think a lot of the concern, at least from some of the select board, is once you're into benefited, that's because it goes back to this whole pension, liability kind of issue. So
One of the issues to look into is whether this position, unlike some of the others, I don't think a lot of people stay in them that long, that it becomes a pension issue.
Okay.
And whether we can make the argument that there's not a lot of commissions that end up with agents that stay that long, that it
Okay.
creates some pension liability. But that's, and I also just want to bring up the issue of whether we have to look at more about our fund from the state fees that I think has been automatically rated.
Well, that's a separate topic, is it not?
No, well, I just want to say to them, we could automatically just regularly use that to fund the agent, part of the agent position, rather than accumulate it, but just make it part of a regular deal.
Right,
that's,
right.
Allocated there even though it's a little of, it's there anyway, but whatever, okay. Whatever, I gave you some numbers, we could talk about it.
Yeah,
So
no, we'll definitely put something together and I'll be in
you have
touch
what
with
you
you.
have, and you could decide if you want more.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. What else?
Pine
Pine
Hill
Hill.
project? Or was
Pardon?
that? Oh, I thought he said what
The
else?
Pine Hill project, I think that's the thing you were saying has been
Yeah, that's
dispensed with.
a non-discussion.
Do we have any violation issues that we need updates on?
I have not been able to do any work on the violation issues. I'm sorry.
Great.
I have
It's-
not
it's-
heard
I
back
think-
from Mr. Dowse.
What's that?
I have not heard back from Nate Dowse.
Okay.
I did start looking at aerials. The website that Jean sent out is fantastic, but it only has images up to 2017. Which is unfortunate.
Nasty stuff. Did you see nasty stuff even then?
It's hard to say. So I trying to line up the images, especially with like time of year, just to make sure everything, like in the summer, sometimes there's algae, or different years the water levels are higher or lower. But so I used Google. There's one area that I can definitively say right now, there's a thing there that wasn't there before, jutting out into a body of water. So, and it's like, it looks like fill. And it actually probably, it matches up with one of the photographs that nobody wanted to submit, so.
Okay. All right.
So I
well,
will try and flesh that out a little bit more and put it into some kind of form, like where you could see the pictures side by side. But I have a ton of like screenshots and PDFs, and some are from one aerial program and another, and I have to pull it all together. It's not as simple.
Okay. All right. We didn't do a review of the warrant.
I don't think we have one.
Oh, it's on the agenda. I thought I signed something recently, or was that just an old one?
It was, you signed it before the last meeting.
Oh, all right. Okay, wonderful. So I finally remember, and there isn't one. Okay. AAs?
I'll read them.
They're all out.
19 Kendall Avenue, soil testing. 17 Wood Road, soil testing. 75 Nason Hill Road, screen porch. 36 Ash Lane, pool house, sport court, and pool. 30 Woodland, distribution box replacement. And 148 South Main Street, soil testing. All of these activities are outside the jurisdictional area.
Fabulous. Anything else?
C'est tout.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, Jean?
Aye.
Neil, aye. Courtney?
Hi.
Michael?
Aye.
Cindy?
Hi.
Carol?
I did say
Fantastic.
aye.
Hi or aye? Aye, aye.
Boy, we're really bad. We can't
Aye.
even get a final vote in.
All right, wonderful. Have a good night, everybody.